Hello, loyal viewers. Tim from Brass Band. I hope you are all going really well and have had a nice weekend. We're going live this weekend with some really fantastic masterclasses. So all of the masterclasses we'll be streaming over the next couple of days. They're all live, they're all interactive, and they're all presented by Skunkworks Productions. If you'd like to be involved in the masterclass itself, as more than just a viewer, you can actually join the interactive Zooms on the Skunkworks production website. If you can't find where that is, let me know and we'll put a link up somewhere. But there's going to be days and days of fantastic masterclasses and great workshops and different sessions with different community music type people. So today there's already been some information about child safety policies, music selection and arranging, and grant writing as well. So this evening, hello, loyal viewers, if you're in Melbourne, hope you're all great. From Melbourne time, 5:30 p.m, so in 3 minutes time, if the technology all aligns, we'll be going live with Shona White, giving a tenor horn masterclass, and that will go for a little while. Then we'll have a break and come back with a cornet masterclass with Tom Hutchinson, of course, principal cornet with the world famous Corey Band. Tomorrow we have Harmon Van Horn giving a masterclass at midday. We've got Dr. Rob McWilliams of Yamaha fame, having a musical directors forum, the great Richard Shirley giving a trombone masterclass, and the amazing, everyone's great and amazing Josh Rogan will be doing a masterclass at 5:30 p.m. tomorrow as well. So heaps and heaps of stuff. I really hope you can join us all week. I'm just putting out the streams, so I'm just linking the Facebook or the YouTube with what's going on in the masterclasses. If you want to participate in the masterclasses directly, you need to go to the Skunkworks website and you can get on to the Zoom, which should be good, I hope. It's going to be great. I just listened in on the last one. We're doing just a little practice without actually streaming it to see how it was going to go, and it's going to be really good. Reminder that this next weekend coming up, we are going to be having the Queensland Band Championships on Sunday next week. We still have a few logistic things just to organise there, but it all looks good to be live streaming the Queensland State Band Championships next weekend. And then after that we'll have the ANAFOB 2, so the online festival of bands is going to be back in a couple of weeks' time as well. So lots of great things being live streamed. If you are in lockdown, hello New South Wales, hello Victoria, hello different parts of the world who are joining us as well. I do hope you're keeping your spirits up and still buzzing, still practicing and getting excited. And if you're obviously in Western Australia or somewhere that's not locked down, gee, we're jealous of you. I've just been dropping in and out of the ANBOC conference this weekend as well, so the Australian Band and Orchestra Directors Conference, so some really good ideas about streams in there as well. Okay, Shona White's going to be coming up very soon. If you want to type in on the chat and let us know where you're watching from, that could be nice, if you feel like it. If you don't feel like it, that's okay as well. We're going to flip across now to the Zoom, which should be starting hopefully very soon. So Shona White coming up in a minute or so. Then following that, we'll be going live with Tom Hutchinson Masterclass at 7:30 p.m. Melbourne time. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Skunkworks. Thank you to the Bands Association of New South Wales, to Windcraft, Fine Music, the Victorian Bands League, and all the different sponsors who have made this possible. Okay, I think we're almost ready to go. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, technical difficulties. We're just having a little trouble getting the Zoom across to us for this one. And of course, the test stream we did just before worked really well. So if we can't get this one going with Shona White, apologies. But don't worry, we'll get Tom Hutchinson up at 7:30 p.m. Melbourne time. But we'll keep trying to see if we can get this current masterclass going. Otherwise, it's all right. You sat here and watched this little video for a little while, and hopefully that was fun. We'll see if we can get it working. If we can't, apologies. There will be recordings floating around after the event. Thanks for watching. Stand by. If nothing happens, this video will just be deleted like it never happened. Let's see where we're up to.
And the one thing that I wasn't scared of or didn't seem to be stressed was when I played. So you can imagine my parents were really into that sort of, oh, she's playing her horn, she's stopped crying and she seems to be a bit happy, so we'll keep her doing that. So that was kind of how it began for me. And I didn't find it easy to make friends and to sort of socialize. Even now I still have to put my big girl pants on sometimes to do things like this morning, and just, you know, just generally sort of, even if I have to walk into a restaurant or a bar and stuff on my own, I don't enjoy that. It's not something I find particularly easy. But playing for me and music just felt right, just from being a child. And I just wanted to play, I wanted to practice all the time. So even sort of 10, 11, 12 years old, I was practicing for like 1 to 2 hours a day. You know, I had a beautiful home, a lovely sort of childhood. My dad was an architect. He built and designed our house. So I kind of had this bit, I could play at 11 o'clock at night if I wanted to, and it didn't bother anyone, in the middle, just out in the sticks, in the middle of Scotland. Which, in case you didn't know, that's where I'm from. I actually live in England, but I'm Scottish. It's very important that you know that, and distinguish between the two. I don't know whether you can even hear it in my accent anymore or not. Who knows? So yes, so they really encouraged me to play, and it wasn't something, you know. I'm a teacher now, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Again shortly. And my experience as a teacher is that if the person you're teaching doesn't actually want to play, they're not going to end up being very good, and they're not going to enjoy the experience. And I teach in a school, and in our school, it's very important that those girls, I teach in an all-girls school, are encouraged to play an instrument. And sometimes it's their parents that really are reliving their dreams through their children playing their instruments. And for me, I think you have to play. So that was really important for me. And then through that, we had an amazing system in Scotland where you didn't have to pay for lessons. And our teacher conducted our school band. He conducted our sort of senior band that competed in all the competitions. So in my life, I've had two teachers who were huge influences on me, both as a person and as a musician and a brass player as well. And in those beginning years, my teacher was called John Vokes. He's very well known in Scotland and the UK. He's produced some fantastic players, and his one thing was sound. That's what he was interested in. So right from a really small person, sound was hugely important to me. So it's no coincidence that because of that, I've ended up being the voice of the tenor horn, or the sound, or the person who is kind of an advocate for that. And that will never leave me. I'm so passionate about the tenor horn sounding like a tenor horn, no matter how music and brass bands progress and change styles. It's so important that that sound, that fundamental sound, is hugely important. So back to being a kid, we didn't do grade exams when I was young, and we got thrown into a minibus and taken around Scotland and made to do solo competitions instead. And I know that you're really into that in Australia as well. That's such a huge thing. There's quite a lot of connections, I think, between you and sort of me, where I come from. And even like at the age of 12, you were put on the stage and said, right, just play the solo. It doesn't matter if it goes wrong, just do it. And that, I think, was just a brilliant you kind of rip the plaster off. You don't even know what you're doing when you're 12. You're just standing there and you're just playing Iona or whatever the pieces that you've been given, and it's just what you're told to do. So for me, I actually don't have a grade to my name. I don't have grade 1, which a lot of my students find absolutely hilarious, that they're more qualified than me officially. But we learned our trade. We learned how to play by doing that. And so now I think a mix of the two is good, because I missed out on all the theory and all the scales and all that kind of stuff. But boy, could I stand up and play in front of an audience. So I don't know what's better, what's worse. Maybe a mix of the two would be great. So our teacher was great. We did this, and then it got to that sort of stage where, what do I do? What do I do for a job? I loved science. I know some of you are probably going to laugh. I was really great at science, and I also I loved geography. I wanted to be a weatherwoman on the TV. That was like my thing, which was really funny, which I never actually did, thankfully. So I was going to go and study to be a biology teacher, because I really loved that. And then it kind of got to that crucial time. It's like, well, I really do like playing my horn. I have to tell you, at that point in my life, I had no idea how good I actually was, if that makes sense. And I think really that was a good thing. I knew I could play it. I knew I enjoyed playing it, and I knew that people liked me playing it, and that it was easy for me to do. So I thought, I'm going to go and do this because I like it. And at the time, which was way back in 1992, you couldn't study the tenor horn in a lot of universities in the UK, because it wasn't seen as a good enough instrument, because you didn't play it in an orchestra, which is just absolutely disgraceful. I wanted to stay in Scotland. I'm Scottish. I love being Scottish, and I love the place. But the one place in Scotland that could have studied music wouldn't even let me through the door. They wouldn't give me an audition, because I didn't play the French horn. So at that time, there was a place called Salford University. It was advertising in the bandsman all the time. Best for bands. If you play the baritone, the horn, the flugel, euphonium, come here and study. So off I went down to Salford, and my life kind of just began, I would say, from that point. I had an incredible journey there, both as a person growing up and sort of learning how to socialize and just generally look after myself. The place was amazing for that. It was such a anyone that comes out of Salford University with a degree will be very grounded and very be confident in themselves, but no ego. Just that's kind of what you were taught, and I love that, and I try to teach that to everyone that I meet as well, that you have to do your talking out your instrument. You can't just, because you're really good, doesn't make you a better person than the person who's not really good. It just means that you're lucky and you got the talent and the gift to be really good. You're not a better person than them, you're just a better player. And so the whole experience at Salford was fantastic. My teacher, fellow Australian, Professor David King, phenomenal teacher, had the best time. Taught me absolutely everything that I'm able to do right now. So very, very lucky girl. Both my teachers were cornet players, which is quite interesting, because nowadays people are desperate to go and study with the one person that they listen to and the instrument that they play. For me, it wasn't about that. It was the fact that both my cornet players had incredible sounds and they were incredible musicians. And it didn't matter that I wasn't listening to another horn player play, because I had my sound and I knew how I wanted to sound and how I wanted to play. And to be honest, I did an interview, I think it was for the Bandsman the other week, and one of the questions was, who did you listen to growing up as a player? And I'm like, well, no one. Actually, I didn't listen to other horn players. I didn't listen to other brass players. I listened to my teacher, John, and then I listened to David, and then I listened to all the other players I was playing with around me. But growing up, I listened to singers. I listened to Karen Carpenter. She was my absolute, I just loved listening to her sing, and I wanted to play how she sang. And I think from a very young age, that kind of imprinted in my brain. And whenever I want a little bit of inspiration, I go back and listen to her, and I think, wow, the phrasing, the quality of her tone from low to high register, everything, it's so amazing. So for me, it was the David fixed all my problems that I had. Maybe sort of, I didn't have big problems, but he made sure that I had everything, all my basics. He got all my we did so much work from the album, getting my articulation, my breathing, all these things sorted. And then once they were sorted, I was able to then move on to sort of learning how to play music, which to me was his biggest gift. To me was just sort of imprinting that musicality on me, which as I've gone through my career, I've not met many people who play the same way. So it's obviously that came from him, and it was in me as well, because you can't do it if it's not there. But that combination of the two of us just made everything for me just absolutely perfect. So he was very tough, but I needed that as well. Tough love and very nurturing at the same time, and encouraged me to do all these competitions, which again was something I was kind of used to anyway. And then I won this really amazing competition while I was at university, called the BBC Radio 2 Young Musician, and it was incredible because it was me playing the tin horn up against all the instruments that existed in the orchestra. So anyone could play in this competition. And I didn't think at the time, again, sort of the story of my life, I don't really think about what I'm doing at the time. I just do it because someone either told me to, or I think it's a good idea. So went in for this competition, went through all these different rounds, and even they were incredible. When I look back now and think, wow, sort of, that was 1996, and we're in 2021. Yeah, I kind of lost the last 2 years. I'm not quite sure sometimes where we're at. I look back and think, how did you do that? I would get on a train from here, go down to Maida Vale Studios in London with my accompanists from college. We'd walk into the studio. They weren't prepared for a brass player coming in, so you just walked in cold, no warm up, walked into the studio, when they have the red light and they're behind the box, there was a piano and a microphone, and they said, play. And that was it. And you got one chance, you recorded your piece, and then it went out live on the radio, BBC Radio on the Friday. And you had no idea what you sounded like. None of this, oh, I'll just go back and can I check this first, please? Or can I manipulate that sound? Or can I copy and paste that bit? None of that. It was pure live, that one chance that you got, and then you were in. So apologies, my camera does this every now and again when I get a bit enthusiastic and get a bit close. It'll come back into focus in a minute. So I ended up getting through to the final of this competition. There was something like 4 or 5 rounds, and I ended up, the final was in the Queen Elizabeth Hall in the South Bank in London, and with the BBC Concert Orchestra being the accompaniment. So you can imagine, what? How am I going to do that? How is she going to play up against a clarinet, and a violin, who were the other finalists. How is she going to be able to do that? So there's no music for tenor horn and orchestra. So luckily I was playing at YBS at that time, Yorkshire Building Society Band, and they stumped up the cash to basically, because the BBC weren't really going to do it, and they paid for me to have 3 pieces that I wanted to play. Well, that David chose for me to play, if we're being really honest, and they paid for that to be arranged for orchestra and tenor horn. So I played John Gollan's Ballad, Concert Etude, Guernica, and Somewhere Over the Rainbow at the final, which is just hilarious, really, when you think about it. But the whole thing with the radio too was it had to be easy listening. It was that radio station. So he was very clever with what he did, and he was very clever because it showed off that I had some technique. It also showed off that my musicality, but my sound, and playing with an orchestra backing you. It was the most incredible, really, it was an incredible experience. Again, at the time, I was very naive, very young, and part of me was like, I just want to play. I don't actually want to win this competition, because if I win, I'm going to have to go on a radio show the next day and do an interview. And that possibility terrified me more than standing in front of thousands of people and having to play in the final of this competition and going out live around the world. I was more worried about having to meet this woman, Debbie Thrower it was, the next day on the radio, and giggle my way through that. So amazingly I won, and again, where my life kind of began at Salford, the tenor horn journey for me sort of began there, because I was then responsible for putting that on the map, putting the tenor horn on the map against, as a musician, as a musical instrument that was valued everywhere. It didn't matter what you were playing. I was playing an instrument, and that musician was coming through. So it was an amazing, at the time I didn't get it, but now I look back and I'm wow, why could you not have actually realized at the time how amazing that was? But I think that's everyone's like that, aren't they? So that was great. Got lots of work from that, as you can imagine. The prize, the really annoying thing was that I never ever seemed to win any money with anything that I won. It was always, oh, have this book token, or have this, go and buy this music, or something. And it was the same. I didn't get any money. So my prize was to play lots of concerts and have an hour show on the radio, which was, again, probably really terrifying. So then the BBC realized, oh, we've got a bit of a problem here. We'll have to pay for all this music to get done. So then I got an hour's worth of music arranged for tenor horn and orchestra, which is stuck somewhere in the depths of the BBC library, somewhere deep in London, and they won't let me have it. And you have to pay something like £600 a minute to have it. And typical BBC, they take everyone's money and don't give you anything back. Anyway, we won't go there. So that was amazing. And the whole point of the competition was you being in your final year at university and to launch your career, which it clearly did, and I'm very, very grateful for that. But then it wasn't enough to play. It just wasn't enough. I'm a very, as I explained before, a very sensitive soul, and I didn't like the whole pressure of playing. That sort of all of a sudden became a pressure then for me, where I had to perform, and I was sort of started to feel I was kind of only as good as the performance that I was doing. And of course, you're all musicians, that it doesn't always work out. You can't always play to your best potential every time. So I just thought, this isn't enough for me. I'm missing something. There's more to me than this. So I then went trained to be a teacher. I did that for about 7 years. Taught at all the universities and all that kind of stuff, and played. And then I went to train to be a school teacher, and everyone sort of around me was like, what are you doing that for? The only people that train to be a school teacher are the ones who can't play, and the ones that don't make it. They're the ones that go in. So almost failed musicians, that there was a thing. And I was just like, no, I really want to do this. It's going to be good. And then, so 21 years later, I still wake up every day and love going to my job as a school teacher. And I don't see it as a negative thing. I see it as my chance to inspire everyone I meet from a young age, because I had that. Someone did that for me, and I want to do that to other students. And I don't do any brass. I do a tiny little bit this year, but I don't teach brass in school. I teach general music. So I teach at a private girls' school, and I can see Claire, you're on here. I saw that before, so hi to Claire, who Claire Deedy. She used to work with me in Bolton. So it's so nice to see you, and thank you for coming. And it's just the most incredible school. It's just full of girls, and it's just. I don't think it's a coincidence that I've ended up there. That's where I want to be. It's where I wanted to be, and I teach from sort of the 7-year-old little girls in the primary school all the way up to the 18-year-old girls who are doing their A levels to go to university. And I just love it. I have 2 choirs. I have a middle school choir with this year we've just started last week with 55 girls in it. Then my senior choir with 78 girls in it. My love of singing has really evolved over the last few years since going to that school, and I'm involved in so much singing and playing. Another thing we'll talk about later, I think are really connected. So I teach there. I leave the house at 7 o'clock every day, get home any time between 5 and 10 at night, depending on what we've got on. We do lots of concerts, and we're back up and running again, so that's all happening again. And then there's playing the horn. How does that fit in? Sometimes it's really tricky, but I love playing my instrument. So what I tend to do, as soon as I get home, I just throw my keys down and I just do my hours practice. And I've just kind of always done that from when I started teaching. And then if I have to stay late at work, we usually have a break in between the kids going home and then us doing our concert. I'll just go and I'll take my horn with me and I'll do my practice at work. That hour practice for me is just the same as me having to eat dinner. It's such a part of who I am. And even though I don't play in a band anymore, I don't really do that much playing in public because I choose to. I could do if I really wanted to. I don't want to at the moment, and but I still want to play my horn. It is such a huge part of who I am as a person, and I don't think that'll ever go away. And it's all the way back to when I was 10 years old, and I just wanted to play my instrument. 47, I've just sort of told you the whole journey. I'm still at that point. I just want to play my instrument. I love it. It's really cool. I like listening to myself play. I know that sounds really egotistical.
Yeah.
I really do like listening to myself play. I don't like listening to anyone else. I like listening to me, and I get the honor and the privilege of being able to do that every day. So I just genuinely love it, and that's my story, and that's where I'm at. And I just wanted to share that with you because I think sometimes people see someone like me and they go, oh gosh, like, they've got no idea what you're like as a person. Nobody would know what a struggle it was for me to just talk to someone and then to sort of evolve through music to be able to be here today doing something like this, to talk for a living to my students every day and not be scared. I mean, the really funny thing is, everyone who knows me and friends with me, I'm really not a funny person at all. They all have zero sense of humor, like zero sense of humor. But all the kids at school think I'm really, really funny. And my husband and my friends, and nobody believe me at all. But we just have such fun, and I seem to sort of get in front of them and just that's where I'm the most relaxed and happy when I'm in front of the girls and boys if we mix around. And I think I hope that my love of music passes on to them, whether it's a social skill that they gain, or actually the ability to be able to play an instrument, or whatever it is that they want to do. So that's my journey. So we have a little pause there for a minute. If anyone has any questions about anything, or they feel that they relate to that.
I was about to say, Shona, that would be a wonderful place to stop. Personally, I've got to say that the first time I met you was on a TV screen playing A Perfect Day.
Oh God.
Yeah, we're going back now, aren't we?
Well, actually, here we go. I'll just take this off the wall. There you go.
There we go.
I don't talk about it very much, but I'm very proud of it. And I've just gone out of focus again. Sorry. It'll come back in.
So if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat. Put your hand up. I've just got to go to view. Oh.
No.
They're all too shy, Shona.
Oh, come on. I just told you I'm the shyest person in the world.
Llewellyn, come on, you must have a question.
I guess I have a question. Really very cool.
Yeah, they're all too shy. I'm sorry.
I've got one here from David. There's one on this chat that says, what were some of the bands you played with? Shall I answer that? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hi, David. I have played with all the good bands. I've been a bit of I've been around a bit, so I've been doing it for a long time. Obviously, my band was YBS, Yorkshire Building Society. Well, that was my band. It always will be. I played there for 11, 12 years, and it was just the most incredible experience. We won. Well, that was the other thing. I never really was into the whole contest winning thing. For me, it was about competing, but doing what we were asked to do and actually fulfilling that. So the journey of learning a piece with a musician like David was just like the most exciting thing ever, because he would bring something that just no one else. We quite often would go and listen to other bands at the contest and think, oh, we don't sound like that. That's not how ours goes. And you'd be like, oh, okay, because it was so incredible with his interpretations that it was really different. So that band was amazing, but probably the wasn't the contest wins that were amazing with YBS, even though they were great. It was the CD recordings that we did as a band were just, they're legendary. I still go back and I just don't feel like anyone has ever matched any of that. It was, and being part of it, when I go back and listen to them, I'm instantly transported back to the place where we did the recording, all the the feelings, emotions, even smells of the venue, because they were so just so important at the time, and you wanted to do it so brilliantly, and so those recordings were amazing. I played with Black Dyke for a few years, because I think everybody just wants to play with Black Dyke and say they've played with Black Dyke. Even I wanted to do that, so and that was fun. I played with Brighouse, I played with Folders, I played with Ground Thought, but all of those for like small periods of time. And if I'm really honest, and this will sound probably not, a little bit conceited maybe, none of them have ever matched what I experienced at YBS. So I don't want to do it anymore, because it just doesn't do it for me. So I want to play with those kinds of players. I want to play with those kind of musicians, the conductor, and I'm at that stage in my life where I've been there, done it all. I don't need to do it. So I'm more content. I get quite frustrated if it's not what I want it to be, because I know what it used to be. But at the same time, for a few years, I did want to still compete and play in bands. I hate competitions. I get so nervous, but we'll talk about that later. That's one of the best things about not playing in a band anymore, is not having to go through the trauma of contests, because it really was a trauma for me, every single one of them. So it might look like the swan was gliding along when you watch the videos and stuff, but inside, oh my God, no, we'll talk about that, and performance anxiety anxiety soon. Any
I
others?
I have so many personal questions on that. We'll get this moving. Mariana's asked, you said that you base your sound on singing and you take choirs. Do you sing and do you feel this helps enhance your sound?
Yeah, today my husband is a tuba player, and he's a bit younger than me, so he hasn't done it quite as long as me. He's still got the bug, so he's playing. Luckily for him, one of the tuba players for Corey is not playing, and he's kind of their permanent dep, even though we live 4.5 hours drive away from their rehearsal space. But he wants to do it that much, and has so many friends down there. So he's been packed off for a week. So it's the national championships next Saturday. So he's away all week, down in South Wales rehearsing. So I have the house to myself. So that means generally two things. Cleaning, which I love, is my other love. I will clean my house from top to bottom once I get off here, and whilst I'm cleaning, I will sing literally the whole day while I am doing that in every room. And it will mainly consist of Wicked, Hamilton, In the Heights, anything to do with music theatre, bit of Karen Carpenter will be in there as well. So yeah, I do loads of singing. I actually have singing lessons at the moment as well, because I was doing so much singing at school. I really felt I needed to understand where it was coming from, where was my voice, why was my voice doing what it was doing, and it turns out that I've been doing it wrong my whole life, and I've been singing in the approach that I would play my instrument, which is to take a massive big breath and then blow everything out, and it's the complete opposite when you sing. So that was really interesting. So I've definitely improved, but I think totally when I get a piece of music and I need to play, I sing it first, and then, because singing for me is really natural and really easy, and then playing is kind of, I used to think, actually, this is interesting, I used to think that my playing was my singing was an extension of my playing. But actually, now that I'm older and a bit more confident, I realized that actually my playing was an extension of my singing voice. But when I was younger, I wasn't confident enough to sing, so I didn't know. So yes, absolutely, I do believe that they're connected, massively connected.
There's lots of wonderful questions here, Shona, and I mean, I guess you can see them all. I think my favourite one is hold on, where is it? Have you named your tenor horn?
No. I'm not into that kind of thing. I never had like posters of people on my walls when I'm so dull and boring. Honestly, I'm like the most boring person ever. I have no sense of humor. I don't like going out. I don't like drinking. I don't like doing anything that's like apart from just playing and cleaning and cooking. I love cooking and I love baking. I love that. They're my passions. I love food. Anything to do with food. But no, I haven't named my tenor horn. I haven't named my car or anything like that either. But I'm still playing on the same tenor horn I had when I was young. So this is, it would help if there was a mouthpiece in it, I suppose. There you go. This is my tenor horn, my sovereign tenor horn that my parents bought me when I was 15. And this is the tenor horn that has won the Young Musician, that won all the European Championships with YBS, absolutely everything with them. This is my baby, and she's still in amazing condition, as you can see. And the vowels are still absolutely incredible. There's a little bit of a dodgy patch on there that I had to, when I was abroad one time, a hole appeared before a concert, so they had to like come and do this emergency patch, or I couldn't play. So, but I think it's quite cute that it's there. It's all part of the journey, isn't it, and your memories. So yeah.
There's quite a lovely question. I'll paraphrase Llewellyn, who's a wonderful tenor horn player here in Melbourne. He's basically saying, how much time do you spend practicing? Does that change on bass? Does that change based on what you have coming up? So are you like the rest of us who just put the instruments down when there's nothing to do?
Yeah, so you guys are we're all at different places with COVID, aren't we? I think you're like bad again, aren't you? Like lockdown, as in you're not allowed. Pardon?
Don't talk about it, it's bad. It's
Oh,
very bad.
sorry. We read the news over here about you, and all we see are sort of like that you're not allowed to come here and leave. So I think that's really sad. So I'm sorry for you guys. But we've had I think we've just had the worst 2 years I've ever experienced in my entire life. Although saying that, having told you my story, we loved lockdown. We were very happy being in lockdown. It was like heaven. Didn't have to speak to anyone, didn't have to go out anywhere. It was really great. So I've had to relearn those skills again in the last sort of few months, which have been really difficult. But yeah, so practice wise, I struggled a little bit because it was just also strange. So there was kind of, I would, for the first time in my life, I sort of didn't play for a week or two, and then in the lockdown, and then I would pick it up and sort of do that. And then I got COVID, and I got really sick with it, really, really sick. I was off work for about 4 weeks, wasn't able to breathe. I was one day off being admitted to hospital, and I have no health issues. I don't take any medications. I'm a really healthy person, really. So it was just one of those, it's just so strange, but was really, really poorly, and that was in December, and January just gone. So that was the big kick up the bum for me, because I couldn't play my horn. I've never ever been in a situation where something else, an external factor, stopped me being able to play, and that really scared me. So from that point on, I've just been massively on it. So I did have like a little bit of a break, and it was really difficult to keep yourself motivated when I don't play in a band anyway, but I had lots of solo concerts booked and things like that. And then also when I'm teaching, I want to be good. I want to be able to demonstrate to my students, this is how I want you to do it. And if you don't practice, then you can't do that. So then sort of over Zoom, it's not that you can kind of get away with it of you not sounding very good on Zoom, because you can blame Zoom and you can blame all the sound issues. So I had to slowly start to get back, because I literally I couldn't breathe at all. The only place I could breathe, I couldn't walk from here to that door without it just collapsing in a fit of just not coughing and not being able to breathe. So it took a long time. So I literally had to start sort of 5 minutes every day, just trying to get my playing back and just build it up. And then sort of after a couple of months, I was back up. Now, they did say that my lungs were not the problem, which I still find really strange, because I genuinely couldn't breathe. But it was my heart rate was really, really high. So I think they're all connected, aren't they? Your heart and lungs and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm still a little bit now, still a bit short of breath, and sort of having sort of work investigations to see if it is this long COVID or not. I mean, I can still function, I can still play, but yes, my amount of practice level changes depending on what I'm going to be doing. I've just done this amazing project for you're going to laugh your heads off when I tell you. It's some production company have written a play for Radio 4 about a Scottish tenor horn player. It's not me, it's just random. A Scottish tenor horn player. The guy who's written it is a professional accordionist. He's a folk musician, but he composes, does lots of competitions. And he's written this story about this Scottish tenor horn who got propelled into stardom, and then played at the Royal Albert Hall. He did all this investigating about brass bands. He didn't know anything about it. He did lots of interviews with people. And then she messed up at the Royal Albert Hall, ran off the stage, went off to this fetish club. Apparently that's where it stops being me, and just had this terrible time, went through this terrible trauma, and blah, 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 blah. And then it all comes good. Anyway, so he asked me to be the voice of the character Kelly, which was so exciting, because it's the first thing that I've kind of done in ages. So we all went and recorded all that music a couple of weeks ago. And it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever played. It was so high. They wanted everything to sound like it was kind of on the edge, because she was on the edge. So it was like the majority of it was C's, D's, E's, just ridiculous. So it really pushed me beyond what I've normally done. So I had to do tons and tons of practice. So we have our school summer holidays here from July through to September, and the recording was at the end of September. So I basically did about 2 hours a day from the beginning of my holidays, because we didn't go on holiday because we still can't really do that. Well, you can, but it's quite awkward and not fun with all the testing and stuff. So I just decided I was going to concentrate on playing. So I'm now back, probably where I was before COVID started, but I had to put that time in, and depending on what I'm going to do, I will up, but the hour is my minimum. The hour is my minimum, and that's not including my 15 to 20 minute warm-up. So my 15 to 20 minute warm-up is a separate part to the hour of practice. I have to throw that in there because people quite often think it's in there and it's not. So yes, I hope that answers that question. Sorry, I do tend to drone on a bit.
No, this is wonderful, Shona, honestly. We got, and there's so many wonderful questions. I don't even know which one to pick next.
Oh, just pick anything, because this is great, because this is what people want to hear, and rather than me just talk about stuff you don't want to hear.
There was where was it? No, this is one that interested me from Denby. How does the trauma of contesting compare to doing a solo recital? Is there...
It is different. It is different. So when you are just you have complete control. And so you can control the narrative massively, to quote Hamilton. Sorry, it's just in there. You totally do. You depending on how much practice you do, basically. So, and that's what I'm going to say too. Everything revolves around practice, and the kind of practice you do, the quality of practice you do, how much practice you do, because that then goes in there. And if you are totally prepared and you can't do any better than you are doing at that time, then the psychology of that says that you'll be okay. So I still do get nervous playing solos, but nowhere near as nervous as playing in a band, because then you affect everyone else. And if you mess that up, and that's what gets in my head. There's that, and then also the fact that if you're someone like me, everybody knows who you are. And that's really scary. So you walk onto the contest stage, and there's one of two kinds of people. The kinds of people that go, oh my God, it's Shona White. We're going to hear what it's supposed to sound like now, which is a pressure. And then you've got the other people who are like, we don't like her. We want her to be really rubbish, so that makes us feel good. And you have that pressure too. So you have that kind of the combination of that. So and then also, if everyone else is stunning and outstanding in their solos and all the bits in their band, and then you are the one person that makes a mistake, you could be at the level that we play at the reason that you don't win and you come second. And there's that pressure. And that's really, I struggled with that an awful lot. I struggled keeping that out of my head. I managed, but I didn't always manage. And I cocked up like I've done some dreadful mistakes on contests. And one in particular with Brighouse that really did cost them the contest. And after I did that, it was just this piece. It's really interesting because I knew the minute I played that piece, I've never felt like this ever in my entire life. I knew the minute I got this piece out that I wasn't going to do it. And it wasn't that I was doubting myself, or I was really calm about it. I just always in the back of my head, I was like, I'm not going to do this. And the problem was I played it right at every rehearsal, all the concerts that we did. And then I got to the actual moment on the stage and I didn't do it. And I knew, and I had actually said to David, I'm not going to do this. He's like, oh, because obviously there's been a lot of times in my life where I thought I wouldn't do something. He's like, of course you will, of course you will. And I was like, no, this is different. And I didn't do it. And oh my God. And I did it on the European contest stage. That again gets live streamed all around the world. And for someone like me, it's like, it literally, that moment, it is the end of the world for you. And I don't even want to go back there, to be honest. It's still, I've never listened to it. I will never ever listen to it. And I was really, really stressed and traumatized for about 4 or 5 weeks after that. And then I had a choice, and this is why I'm telling you this story. I had a choice. It was quite late on. It was only a few years ago. And I was sort of obviously quite late on in my career. And it's like, do I have a choice? It's that moment. Do I stop playing? Because that's me. I'm mid-40s. I've had a great run. Do I just, is that it? Is it the end? Or do I go, no, so what? It was like one time, and there was something about that piece that was just, it couldn't compare it to anything else I'd ever felt. So it clearly was something, that a problem I had with that particular thing, which then says, avoid that forever in the future and don't ever do that again, which is the problem, the solution to the problem. But that doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden really terrible and you can't do it. So what I did then, I decided, it's when I came to Australia, so it was a couple of years ago, I decided I would do my own tour. I would create a tour for myself. I'd go to New Zealand and Australia, I'd go to Switzerland, I'd go to Norway, and I would build my confidence back, and then I would record a solo CD at the end of it. And that was like a 6-month plan, and that's how I was going to get my confidence back. So when I came to see you, if anyone came to see me in any of those concerts, that was all part of my rebuilding myself from the disaster that had happened in May. And then when I got to the end of that, I was actually a better player than I'd ever been. So you have that choice. You can either just give up and let it into your head, or you can analyze it, work out what really happened and fix that problem, and then try and grow and learn from your mistakes. So everybody who's a fantastic player will have had dreadful moments. It's what you do with those that then makes you the fantastic player. That's what I believe in, and I've had a lot of those over the years. A lot of them where I thought it was dreadful, then I've gone back and listened, it's like, nah, actually, so what? So I split a note, it doesn't matter. You're human, you make mistakes, but all the other stuff around it was great. And the one thing David used to always say to me, just play at your 80%. You're trying to play at your 100% every time, because your 80% will still be better than everyone else. But that concept, and when you're that person, it's like, but I have to aim for 100. I have to aim for 100. Otherwise, I'm not achieving. And I am, even now, I'm an achiever. I just don't do well just sitting doing nothing. I can't do that. Always trying to improve myself. I'm always trying to, as a player, get better and better and better and better. And you know, and that's who I am as a person. Sorry, again, I went off a huge tangent there.
Can I don't get to ask many questions, Shona. I get to read lots of questions. Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Regarding all of this, I've spoken to a few people who may or may not have been there at the world premiere of Music of the Spheres. And the things surrounding that, the situation surrounding that. How did you feel sitting on stage opening that piece? Was that something you dealt with? You just went in and you just nailed it like you did, or was there a whole bunch of psychological exercises you had to go through?
That was my favorite piece ever, because it's the best horn solo in a test piece that's ever been written, because it was written for me, so it was like what I can play. So that's why for me it was the best one, because it was what I was good at. The really interesting thing about that is that we didn't really practice the opening very much. So when we were rehearsing, we'd always go from little, where it started to get fast, because it was just one of those things where I guess didn't really need to practice it, because probably David and I were looking at it ourselves between us, and kind of we knew what we were doing. So he commissioned Philip Spark to write a piece for our players, and Philip actually was the producer on The Voice of the Tenor Horn, so he knows my playing inside out as well. So he really knew what he was doing with my playing. And I just remember being backstage of that, and it was really special for me as well, because it was in Scotland. And it was 2014. We were in Glasgow, and we very rarely played in Scotland. And my dad was in the audience because he didn't get to come that often anymore. And my sister was there, and my family and stuff. So it was absolutely amazing. And of course, nobody knew what this piece was going to sound like. I think nobody really had commissioned pieces before either. And then we were in the rehearsal room, and he played through it just before we went on stage. he's so clever. He's such a clever person, and he knew me so well that if I think it was probably deliberate that if we keep going over this, you'll get a thing. So we won't play it, or we'll just do it ourselves when we have a lesson, or come round for a coffee or something like that. And then we did it just in that warm-up room, the 5 minutes before you go on. Absolutely nailed it. The boy, Aidan, my partner next to me, was just like, he used to always say to me, because I was one of those people who would play stuff over and over and over and over again, and like before I go on stage, even though you can play it a million times, or you can play it great. And he was like, put it in the box and throw the key away. And he was just like, and like literally played that once, and sort of like that in my head. So when we walked onto the stage, I had just played it how I wanted to play it, and then it was just like a really transition just going into that. And that's why, I mean, he's so clever. And that's probably one of his best talents. I mean, there's a lot of talents, but that he understands the people in his band and how to get the best out of them that way. If I had been someone else, he might have actually hounded me in the run up to it, because that would have been the way to get me to play it. But I watched myself back on that. Oh my God, what's with the hair for a start? It was so long and so curly. I watched myself, and I'm just in the zone, completely in the zone. And this sense of relief at the end, you can see it once I play it. I literally take my horn away and I just go, thank God I didn't mess it up. And literally that is what is going on through my head. And then the rest of it's just a breeze then, because with me, I focus on one bit of a test piece. And then even though there are other solos, you just like, you want to play that bit. And then Pete Roberts, he blew his slide out and all sorts of stuff halfway through, because I don't know why it fell out. It just fell out, and it was like, came in the wrong place. There was loads of things actually really wrong with the piece that day, but because the band were just so phenomenal and just went for it, and it was incredible, it just absolutely blew everyone away. And it's a great piece. It should get played more. It should get chosen for some of the competitions that we do over here. It's just an incredible piece to play. It's so much fun. Philip Spark is my favorite composer, like ever. Yeah.
For me, and again, I won't hijack the thread, but for me, I think that was the shift into modern banding. That was the shift into and just that pivotal moment. It was wonderful. It was it was amazing. Anyway.
Modern banding, but still, and I've got a real thing about this, but still, in the writing was still right for those instruments and for what they sound the best at. So some of the modern writing for me, and I'm going to get shot down here, I don't want to be playing top E's on the tenor horn or pedal notes on the tenor horn. I want you to hear the tenor horn be played like it should be played, like the opening of Music of the Spheres. It might not seem challenging to some of the modern youngsters these days, that piece, but I challenge any of them to play it with the quality that it's supposed to be played with, and then it will be hard, and that's a problem. But that's me getting a bit political about the tenor horn and where it's at the moment.
That's wonderful, and through that you've answered most of the questions.
Great, brilliant.
So move along.
Fantastic. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about my practice routine and generally what I do, because I know some of you will actually be quite interested in that. And I'm still doing the same things that I did when I was 17 years old. Why would you change what the best teacher in the world taught you to do? Why would you change that because a new book comes along? Or, you know, if it works for you, then stick with it. I'm a massive advocate of the Arban, and anyone who's watched me talk before will know that. The first sort of 28 to 30 pages of the Arban are my go-to thing. That's what I love playing. It's where I feel most comfortable. During lockdown, when I was playing, I was challenging myself to play all 14 studies at the back of the Arban, like in a practice session. I only ever made it to 11, never quite made it past 11, and then my lip just like failed, and I was just so tired I just couldn't do any more. But there's just always something in that book that will just help you. And another, sorry, this does sound like I'm just kind of just talking about David all the time, but it's such a huge impression, and I am the teacher I am because of how he taught me, and what he taught me was to understand why I was practicing something, and that's the missing link with teachers and students. I've seen it a million times. You can tell a kid or an adult to practice something, but if you don't explain to them why and exactly what they're practicing, and then demonstrate that, model that to them, then there's no point. And I've seen lots and lots of teaching where they just go, yeah, just play this exercise. If you play this exercise, this will get better. And they're like, okay, and because they're young or whatever, they just go, right, okay. But I actually now teach a lot of older students, which has just been brilliant. It's like, I just love it because of Zoom and because of COVID. A lot of older players, and I'm talking sort of 50s onwards. I'm 47, so I class myself in that age bracket as old, before any of you get offended. I've had a lot of people contact me that played in bands for fun. They'd retired and they just wanted to play an instrument, and then of course that stopped for them, so they asked if they could have some Zoom lessons. And because they're adults and they're intelligent people and they're choosing to want to learn, the Zoom teaching works really, really well, I feel, with them. But it means that I can teach people from all over the world, which is really lovely. So I have this sort of group of people. I don't have that much time, so I kind of have to spot them around every month, just sort of like up just here and there. They don't have them regularly every week. But that's just been absolutely wonderful teaching them. And again, their minds have just been blown because I'm explaining to them why they're doing something, and then they go off and they practice that for a couple of weeks, and they hear the difference because they're mature, they're not children, they do understand what they're doing, and that's been absolutely wonderful. So for me, I have like a 15-20 minute warm-up that I've done forever. I always do the same thing. Again, I don't get bored playing the same things. A lot of people I know do, though, and that's where the fact that I'm quite a boring person and like really dull things do interest me. Me sitting down playing the same piece of music or album exercise for 30 years is a comfort rather than being bored. So so I enjoy that, but I do know that a lot of people don't enjoy that. So I practice, do my warm-up, and then I instantly know the minute I've done my warm-up whether I'm going to have a good or a bad day. And that's, as a professional musician, you wake up in the morning of a concert or a contest and you know, I'm having a good day or I'm a bad day. That doesn't mean that if you're having a bad day, the world has ended and that you can't actually still perform really, really well. It just means, in my head, I'm probably not going to enjoy it as much as I wanted to. That's the difference. I have to do different things then. It's maybe more of a warm-up, or it might be actually that I don't play anything between that point and me actually having to perform if I'm tired or that kind of thing. And because I know my own playing inside out, I know what those sort of warning signs are. So I do my warm-up, and then at the moment, while I'm at home and I'm not really doing much playing externally, I do my arbon, and I do it every day, and I love it. And I play all exercises. Am I able to share my screen at all? I'm not. Am I? Is that okay? Can I?
Absolutely. Hold on.
Because I just had a few examples of the kind of things that I would do. Oh, sorry.
Where do I go, Philippa? I'm just working this out. Which
I think you
one?
just have to enable me to.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not very good with computers and
It's
stuff.
okay. Don't worry. If you can't do it, it's fine.
I can do it. I can do it. Colin, I need your help, Colin.
Anyway, you keep doing that. I'll keep talking for a minute. So
Yeah.
so what I tend to do as a player, I break down the elements of my playing that I want to practice. So that might be articulation and tongue. That might be fingers and or that might be sort of more technical, like sort of double tonguing, triple tonguing, different aspects of things that are in pieces that I want to improve on. It might be phrasing. My breathing, I obviously do a lot of work on breathing because that's the thing. Air flow shifting air. David used to call us air shifters. Am I good to go?
I think you're good to go, Shona. Yes.
Oh, look, yeah, I am. So, and then, so this is an example of. Can you all see that? Can you see it? Yeah, great. So these are just, I just copied and pasted these from the hub, and just so you could just see the kind of basic stuff that I do. And I think that's always a big shock to people. They think that you're going off and practicing like really, really difficult stuff. And you're not. You're literally going da 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 with a metronome on. At crotchet equals 100. And what I'm doing when I practice these exercises, I'm listening to my own playing, and I'm being very, very critical with it. So I want it to be where my articulation is absolutely perfect on all of these notes. And if I'm not happy with it, if I don't, even just one note is not perfect, I will go back and I'll practice it again. And that's the level of discipline that I feel you have to have it's about hard work, discipline, and not just letting yourself away with it going, well, I've played the exercise now, so I've done my practice. No, that's not good enough. You might have played the exercise through, but did you play it to your 100% potential? And did you fix what you're trying to fix? And that's why these exercises really work for me, because I've played them my whole life. I know what I'm listening out for in my own playing. I know what to do to make myself better. So 11 and 16 are sort of my articulation exercises. 20, the thirds really helped with pitch and intonation. The more you practice these kind of exercises, the more your ear naturally hears whether you're playing in tune. So I think that's really important. And then the bottom one's just another example of is how you push the air through and how you sustain all your notes, but still actually focus on the articulation being clean. Clean is the word, clean. We want clean articulation. You don't want short, you want clean articulation. So that's an example of some of the exercises I would do for articulation. I still, again, I think David made this book for me years and years and years ago. It's just a load of hymn tunes. And for phrasing and just general practicing playing quiet, which is something that you have to do. You have to practice playing quiet. You don't just naturally play quiet. You have to force yourself to do that. And these are brilliant because you can mix up other parts of your playing that you're practicing. So you can think about your quality of tone, you can think about the phrasing, you can challenge yourself to try and play 2 phrases in one breath. You can use your dynamics, and then obviously try and get your soft playing in as well. And that's what I do, and I think that's why I don't get bored, because I will then do something different with the exercises or add more bits in, and try and make it interesting and try and make it fun. And I also do that with my lessons as well with the people that I'm teaching. So there's one more I wanted to share. Where has it gone? Where are you? Here you are. So lip flexibilities as well. I think they're really, really important. I didn't do them for a long, long time. And then when I did start to do them, my playing got better. I just have more control, more strength in my playing. And they don't have to be really, really difficult ones. Don't play ones that are really, really, really high when you're starting off doing this stuff, like, is it the Charles Collins, da, 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 all that kind of stuff. I just avoid all that. I avoid practicing high because I feel like it affects the quality of my tone just in general if I practice playing high too much. So I tend to sort of stay in these. This Visuti book is really brilliant. I do all of these. In fact, I do these as part of my warm-up, so I kind of double up.
Sorry, Shona, sorry to interrupt. That screen is not quite showing. Not quite showing, it's just not showing.
Oh, okay. That's weird. I don't know why. Oh, okay. Oh, right. Sorry. Well, it's basically the Visuti. I'm going to stop sharing now. It's the Visuti book #1, and it's just they just kind of go dee oh, da, do, da, do, da, do, da, do, da, do, da, those kind of ones, and they're just in a really nice register. But there's lots of them, so if you do them, you build up that strength and that flexibility. One big thing for me when I practice, and this is because I don't have a teacher anymore, and I don't have somebody standing at the side of me telling me whether I'm playing in time or not. My metronome is my best mate. Is totally my best friend. I use my metronome more now than I ever have, because I'm not playing in a band, so I don't know whether I'm playing in the right at the right speed with things. And you quite often adjust your tempos to suit how you're playing at that time, and you don't even realize it. So you're slowing bits of a piece down or parts of an exercise down because you're finding it a bit difficult. So I would say to you that home practice, metronome is absolutely crucial, like really, 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 really important, and has helped me. And also because now I'm not playing in front of people, I'm not hearing many recordings of myself. So I record myself playing and listen to myself back so that I don't get into some bad habits. Because when you're playing, you don't always know what you sound like, if that makes sense. You still need to hear yourself from an external place. So I do that a lot. And the reason I do that is because I actually listened back to some of the stuff that I did on this recording for this tenor horn play, and I didn't like what I heard, and I was actually really disappointed. I do tend to over enthuse my vibrato when I'm not being told not to do that. So it was a bit vibby for me, which I was a little bit disappointed with. But then the more I listen to it, the more I just like, yeah, it's all right, it's okay. I don't like listening to myself anyway on recordings that much. So I like listening to the band recordings, but I don't sort of like when I'm doing new stuff. I find that really I overanalyze everything, so it's probably just best to leave it. Okay, so that's kind of just my practice routine. And then once I've done all that basic stuff, the first sort of 30 pages of the album, which covers all the bases for me and all the basics, I then will get some music out that I want to play, some solos that I can play, and I want to keep. If I've got a concert coming up, obviously I practice them. It doesn't matter whether I've been playing them for 25 years or not, I still will practice them as if I hadn't played them before. So if I have a concert in 2 weeks' time, I will start practicing those 2 weeks before that concert, and then I'll keep playing them as if I hadn't done them before, because you're only ever as good as the last time you played. And that's the last time someone heard you play. And even though you've played those pieces a million times, the majority of the people that are coming to hear you play them might never have heard you play it before. So it has to be as good as any time you've ever played them before. So then I do that. And then I've got a couple of pieces that, to be honest, I've never ever been able to play to the standard I want to be able to play them. I've got a couple of solos that, there's some, I'm sure you all know him far. Like his technique is just absolutely incredible, and I can't play as fast as him. But I always keep trying to challenge myself and get some of his solos out that I would never play in public. And you'd probably think it was okay, but it's not good enough for me. And I keep sort of challenging myself with some of those ridiculously difficult things, and keep hoping one day that maybe it will be good enough in my head for me to play it in public. You never know. So yeah.
I missed who that was. Was that? Did you say Park?
Owen Farr.
Oh,
Owen Farr. Oh,
yeah. Super horn player, super technician. I mean, he really, his technique is just, it's just. I don't know many brass players that can play with that technique, to be honest, let alone horn players. So and that's the thing. I'm very realistic. I know who I am. I like who I am. I wouldn't want to be anyone else. I like what I bring to the table. But there's things that you think, oh yeah, it'd be cool if I could do that. But I'm still really happy doing what I do. So yeah. So that's kind of how I go with practice. Any more questions before I?
Shona, there's lots and lots of questions. More than we have time of, but there's many requests to hear you play.
That's going to be a problem today, I'm afraid, because and I'm really, really sorry about that, because it's really early in the morning and my neighbours are asleep and it's Sunday, and I'm really, 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 really sorry about that. What I could do is we could stop the whole thing. I could move everybody downstairs into a different room, and I'm literally where I'm at now with my computer is their bedroom, and they're not going to appreciate that at all. But if you wanted to stop and start it again, I can go down into my kitchen where I would be able to play. It's entirely up to you.
No,
Yeah,
I think we're happy with the conversation, to be honest.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
So Mariana has asked, and this is a very technical question. I'm not quite sure how to explain this, but I have a break in my playing, which is around the C sharp D below the stave. I guess it is the point where my embouchure changes. Have you any advice how to deal with this?
A break in the playing. What does she mean?
Mariana, do you want to come off mute?
Hi, Shona.
Hi.
Yeah, so when I'm playing, like everything's kind of settled when you're in the cash register, the G's and that, and then below the stave is fine, but there's a break as I'm coming down through notes, and I found anything, if I'm say pitching from a D on the stave down to a D, it's almost as if there's a break. Those notes will never sound clear. It's as if I'm shifting my embouchure at that point.
Oh, okay. So does the sound, is it like when you say a break, like there's interference in the sound, or is that what you mean by that?
Yeah. So the notes speak, but they've not got the right tone or sound. Yeah.
Do you find that with your low playing in general?
No, just at that particular point, kind of in that little bridge.
Yeah. So when you're doing that, so do you mean something like maybe going dee or like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, it's just it's hard like when it's a different sort of language. What are you doing with your air when you do that? Are you doing anything with your air when you do that?
Yeah, not 100% sure. Yeah, I guess I'm more aware of what's happening with my chops. Yeah,
so at the same time as you sort of shifting, because you probably will have to shift. So if I was going from a dee or that's what the movement I would be making, dee or and sort of like dropping your chin and kind of jutting it out. That's always the aim for low register. But I would be pushing 100 times more air through, so I would be going like that as I was going lower. So maybe you're not doing that, which then so the air isn't, because the air is like the fuel, isn't it? It's the food for your sound. And if you're not pushing that air and sort of compensating the fact that because you need more when you play lower, if you're not doing that and you're just going, then that might be the problem. So if you practice doing that, then that might help.
Thanks for that. I'll give it a go.
I think, don't quote me on that. I'm not an expert on that kind of stuff. But that's physically, if I was playing that, that's what I would do. I would literally be going and really, really pushing loads and loads of air through that low register.
I'll give that a go. Thank you.
Sorry if at least with Zoom I didn't actually spit on anyone. That's really good.
Chris, and we're rapidly running out of time, so if people have questions, now is the time to ask them. But Chris Brockhouse asked, you mentioned at the end of your warm-up if you're going to have a good day or a bad day. Any idea what causes one or the other?
I think the human body is just the weirdest thing in the world, isn't it? And I've had various issues as I've gone through my playing. You probably see here, you can't see it very well, but I've got a big mole on my lip there. It's really black. It's big, and it's actually like a lump. You can feel it inside. There's a lump, and a long time ago, I had real problems with that, not being able to play above an E in the top of the stave. And then that's where kind of the big warm-up routine came in, because what was happening was I was doing too much playing that wasn't a steady build up to that playing, and this was getting aggravated, and it was swelling up ever so slightly, so my embouchure was a little bit out of sync. So that's what caused that. So from that point on, we sort of looked at a lot of things to help with that, sort of cold and hot water after I'd played to take the swelling down, and arnica. I mean, I literally had, I have like shares in arnica and Carmex. They're like my two, I literally would not be able to survive without either of those things. Arnica just took the bruising out of lips, because quite often we'd be playing for like 6 hours or something. You know, if we did rehearsals and lots of concert things, and at the end of that rehearsal I would put arnica on my lip, then the next day it wouldn't have swollen up. But I think sometimes it's just factors of life, especially now that, you know, I kind of live a real life. It's not just, I can't just get up in the morning and look after my chops and hope that everything is okay. So things like if I don't drink enough water, my lip will swell up, I'd get dehydrated, and then obviously my mouth is dry. So that's one thing. I don't like playing early in the morning. I mean, like early in the morning, not now early in the morning, because again my lip swells up. So for me, that's always the thing. If my lip is swollen, that will be when I'm not having a good day, and I will put my mouthpiece and I won't feel it necessarily as much as I would want to feel it, and that's when it goes, it's not going to be pleasant for me, and I have to get that feeling back in. So when we did contests and things, I would always warm up sort of a couple of hours before we would do our rehearsal, so it would give my lip a chance to swell up and then go back down, so that by the time I get to that point it was fine. But I think it's just lots of not enough sleep, too much sleep sometimes. If you have a lie-in, that's even worse. You know, and not eating properly, drinking too much. Alcohol is, I mean, I'm not a drinker at all, never have been. I'm so stereotypically not Scottish. I might have the odd glass of wine every now and again. I drink less and less now the older I'm getting as well. I can't function. I've never been a drinker, so I don't really, my brain doesn't enjoy the next day anyway. So there's a sort of like a big joke in the band movement with me, because I don't like going to the pub. Like I said, boring, dull. Which is really interesting because my husband loves going to the pub. So that works really well. So yeah, just general life factors, I think, causes it. And then too much playing or too little playing. You got to look after your face. You've got to look after it. At the end of the day, your lips are just full of blood cells, and you put this horrendously cold piece of metal onto it and press onto them for hours and hours and hours. You've got to look after it. You've got to see it from that point, and look after it. Anything else?
We are into our last
It's
couple
gone so fast.
So if you want to suck Shona's brains, for want of a better term, now's your chance. Hold on, I'm trying to see if there's any hands up anywhere.
There's one there. Have you got a third CD in you? I don't know. It's yeah. I kind of sometimes I think, oh, shall I just do it? And then my problem is that I want it's the accompaniments make your CD is great, and I don't know who I would want to accompany me, or you know, I don't know, that would be the thing. And then you have to pay for it as well, and it costs a fortune. I'm not that rich, so I don't know. If somebody would like to fund me, then yes, I will definitely do one. I might get a crowdfunding page or something and do that. But yeah, I think so. Shall I just read through some of these? I've got them here. Favorite solo piece for me, Piper of Dundee, without a doubt, because a Scottish composer wrote a Scottish piece for a Scottish girl, and it just works, and it's just brilliant, and that's basically it. There's something in you, if from where you come from, that your traits, how you play, the kind of music that you feel comfortable with, and he just nailed that for me, and I never get fed up playing that piece. I love it. Oh, what else? There's the pitching thing. Warm up. Oh, actually, I have covered all these questions. I'm like, wow, that's good.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you. I've been
That's
good
pretty
moderator.
cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to finish, like I did talk a little bit about performance anxiety because I know a lot of you will feel that, and I just wanted to say to you that that is normal. That's all I'm going to say. It is normal, and what isn't normal is for you to stick your head in the sand and go, "There's something wrong with me because I think I'm going to throw up before I play." It's normal. It's your body. It's a chemical reaction that you can control to a certain extent, but then can't as well. My main I have several things that I do to help me, and one of them is visualization. I like to visualize that I'm not where I am, if that makes sense. So I'm in where I practice. My comfort place is in my kitchen downstairs, and when I'm playing on a stage, that's where I imagine I am. And I have this ability to actually block out, still be aware that the audience is there, but block them out completely. They kind of go, like I did on Zoom, where on the camera, when I went a bit fuzzy and I was still there. It's kind of like a real life version of that. I have the ability to do that, so I don't focus on that audience and I'm focusing on myself. Breathing, 10 minutes before you go on stage, slow your breathing right down, because the adrenaline is kicking into your body and telling you that you're about to be murdered by a man with an axe. Basically, is the same experience of you going on and playing in the Royal Albert Hall. It's the same thing. So if you bring your breathing down, if you control your breathing, you will bring your heart rate down, and that adrenaline will stop pumping through at the extent where you're then out of control. So I quite often use a technique of breathing in through my nose, in that, that awful moment when you're registering and you're just sitting there waiting for the band in front of you to come off stage. Instead of getting more and more and more panicked in that room, I really recommend that you just sit and you breathe in through your nose, just really like that. I can, even though I'm not stressed, my heart rate, just everything just relaxes if you do that. It's very different to you going, that actually builds the stress. If you do it through your nose, you can't help it. It just naturally, it does it really slowly. And that's really good. The other things that I do, obviously I practice till I believe I can do it really well. And then that autopilot does, when I am in a bit of a mess and I've not managed to get myself under control, then the autopilot will kick in. And because I've done it so many times, because I've practiced it until I can't play it wrong. That's Richard Evans. You might have heard of Richard Evans over here, really charismatic conductor. That was his thing. Don't practice the music until you get it right. Practice it until you can't get it wrong. It's a very, very different thing. And then that sort of autopilot carries you through, and will help a lot. So breathing to get your heart rate down, and I actually turn into a different person. I'm on the stage, I'm like, I am amazing. I stand there or I sit there and go, I am the best. I say these things to my head. I'm amazing. I can do this. Come on, you've worked really hard. You can do it. And then as soon as I come off the stage, I'm like, oh yeah, me again. Like doubting everything that I'm going to do the next time. But I've never been any different my whole life, and I don't want to be. I like that. It works for me. So and that's really important. So I just kind of wanted to mention that really quickly.
So Shona, on behalf of Skunkworks, on behalf of Besson, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful chat.
Thank you.
I think everyone feels warm and fuzzy, which is
well, that's good. I can go and have my breakfast now. And do my cleaning and singing.
And Shona is available for private lessons as well. Performance reviews, any of that kind of stuff. So if you could contact us at contacttheskunk.gmail.com and request that we'll put you in touch with Shona. But it's been wonderful. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, everyone. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for listening to me drone on for an hour and a half.
It's far from a drone, Shona.
Thank you.
Tom Hutchinson up in half an hour. So
Yeah.
if you want the awesomeness to continue, please sign up for
He
that.
is such a nice person as well. You're gonna love him, and he's an incredible player. And he's got rehearsal tonight as well, because that's where Matt is. So yeah. So you can really delve into him. Ask him how he's preparing for next week. There you go.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so
Bye
much.
guys. Take care. Bye.
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 Ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed that fantastic masterclass with Shona White. Big thank you to everyone at Skunkworks Productions for putting that together, putting it on. We'll be back in about 30 minutes' time with Tom Hutchinson giving a masterclass, a little chat just like that when that happened just then. Fingers crossed you can join us. If you want to join it live, interactively in the Zoom, as you saw just happening, head to the Skunkworks website. It'll be great. I'm Tim from Brass Band. We're going to be streaming out all of these masterclasses, or lots of them, over the next couple of days. So hopefully you can join us. Hi everyone watching on Facebook as well.
it really just I just loved brass bands ever since. So after leaving Stannington about age 12, I think I couldn't progress any further. There were some people that didn't want me to sit above them in the band, so I went to another band called Barnes and Building Society. They were in the first section. It used to be called Barrow Colliery. And then after that, when I was about 16, I joined the Rothwell Temperance Band on Principal Cornet. I spent a couple of years there, but whilst I was at the Rothwell Temperance Band, I was also a member of the National Youth Brass Band of Great Britain, and that's where I met Nick Childs. We actually played tennis together. He's a good tennis player. I like tennis, so we sort of formed a friendship or a bond, I guess. And then he invited me to join the Black Dyke Band when I went to university to study at the Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester. So as I started my studies there with Richard Marshall, then I also joined Black Dyke Band as well. Incidentally, Richard was my teacher from the age of 14, Richard Marshall, who was principal at Grimethorpe Colliery Band then, and obviously Black Dyke now. But as I went to university to study at the Royal Northern College of Music, Richard also started to teach there at the same time. So we actually just continued, and we had about 9 years of lessons in total. It's kind of come full circle because now I teach his daughter on occasions as well. So that's really nice. After university, I needed to get a job. So I was looking for work in Manchester and Sheffield, not too far away from each other. And I think I got a couple of little jobs, but nothing that I really wanted to do until Bob Childs from Corey rang me up and said, Tom, we've got a position on Principal Cornet. We'd like you to come down and join us. And yeah, I said yes, and within 2 weeks I had a flat, I had a job, and I had a new band. I got to tell you, the phone call between Nick and Bob, I think, was a little bit frosty when Bob told him that he was stealing one of his players to bring down to South Wales. But as we say, or as Phil likes to say, Phil Harper, that Black Dyke were my training band. So I've found the right place now. But I had a great time at Black Dyke. We did some cool tours. Went to Australia. I don't know if anyone saw the band in Australia, but we met a little bit later on, didn't we, Philippa? And I've got a few funny photos of you actually. But so we went to Australia. We won a few competitions as well. But it was really when I went to Corey that I sort of found myself really and settled into life in South Wales. And 12 years later, I've been here. So I mean, I was at Black Dyke for 4 years, and that really, in my mind, seems like such a long period of time. 4 years at university, 4 years at Dyke. But then when I think I've done 12 years at Corey, time is just flown by. It really has. But I love my life down here. When I first came, contrary to what people might think, I did have a day job. I still do have a day job. Greg, that's not fair. You can't drink wine at 10:30 in the morning. So I had a day job working for Admiral Car Insurance. So taking inbound sales calls whilst still playing with the band, and that was a means to an end, really. And the idea being that I'd have a full-time job and then work down to part-time. At which point I'd just do purely music. So that kind of happened. I had just before lockdown, I had 4 days of teaching, 1 at the College of Music in Wales, and then 3 with schools. But lockdown's hit music really hard, as I'm sure it has done in Australia as well. So on Tuesday this week, I start a new part-time job with a NatWest bank. So I'm quite looking forward to that. And so I've still got a couple of days teaching, but half of my job now is going to be working in a bank, which is going to give me a little bit more security. But yeah, so I've been down here 12 years now. My partner is Elsa Russell, who's the solo horn player. We've just bought a nice house, and our next door neighbour is a baritone player. Would you believe it? So but yeah, so we're all really settled down in South Wales, and we absolutely love it here. I just wrote a little note here. I was going to talk about when I was younger. Actually, when I was about 10 years old, my father's best friend, he played in Black Dyke at the time. So I used to get lifts up to him, to rehearsal with him and Kevin Crockford. And you can imagine as a 9-year-old sat behind Kevin Crockford and Lee Rigg, who's just next, just expand when they play. It was quite an experience, but it's kind of come full circle. Some of you may have seen that Steve Stewart's no longer with us at Corey. So in fact, this afternoon, or probably as we speak, Kevin's driving down from Yorkshire, from just around the corner from my grandma's actually, and he's playing with the band for the remainder of this week for the national finals. So it's really nice that him is my hero growing up is sat behind me. It's quite nerve-wracking actually, but yeah, it's a wonderful experience for sure. So yeah, let's get on with some tips and hints and some playing techniques. Really, as I said, I'm just going to make this kind of a brief whistle-stop tour of what I kind of call the basics of brass playing. Things like breathing, articulation, flexibility, some of which you've probably heard 1,000,001 times, some of which you might not have heard at all. And you know, some things are just good to hear again, aren't they? Maybe if it's from a different person. But let's start off with breathing. I always think that breathing is probably one of the most boring things to talk about, yet the most important. And I think there's just a right and a wrong way to breathe. I think that the wrong way is through your chest. And I think the right way is as deep as possible. I try not to go into too much detail about the diaphragm because A, I'm not a biologist, and B, I simply don't know too much about that muscle. But what I do know is that if you breathe in the correct way, then the diaphragm does enhance what you do. So ultimately, as I said, the bad way is breathing through your chest. So we can all try this together. So if you put your hand on your chest and just take a few breaths as you would normally do, I know, eating, watching TV, or just having a little chat, you'll feel that your chest comes out, your stomach goes in, but also your shoulders raise as well. So I mean, you can stop doing that now. The best time that we breathe is actually when we're asleep, and the reason for that is because we're the most relaxed. If any of you've seen babies sleep, you'll watch their stomachs rise and fall as they breathe, and that's because they're relaxed. They're breathing deep. They're using their diaphragm to breathe without even knowing it. Okay, so the most important thing to note when breathing is that you must stay relaxed. Okay, so this time, I mean, usually this is better stood up, but you probably won't see all of me, but this time, put your hand on your right hand on your chest and then your left hand just on your stomach. I want you to breathe as deep as possible, but without kind of breathing any higher, or without going any higher than kind of your rib cage here. Okay, so if you just take a deep breath now, but not from the chest at all, and only coming up to your rib cage, you should feel that your shoulders stay fairly stationary, but you've got loads more room to play with. It'll feel weird, and at first it'll feel like that you can't actually take a big enough breath, or perhaps as big a breath as you would do with your chest. But by training yourself to breathe in this manner, it extends your certainly breath control, but also means that you've just got so much more support and a better sound, and it just enhances absolutely everything that you do. So yeah, you can try that at home. Obviously, chest, if you feel your chest coming up and your shoulders coming up, that's a bad breath. Okay, if you feel your chest still and your shoulders still, and then your stomach muscles expanding, so your stomach's basically widening and stretching, then you're going to be breathing well. The other thing that I do to always to help breathing, and you can do this in your own band rehearsals, particularly in hymn tunes, I find this useful, is to take a breath and then out the corner of your eye, see how many times the people either side of you or next to you take a breath. You will be surprised. You'll be really, really surprised at how many times people actually breathe when they don't need to. We've got so much more air in us to use than what we think we have, but we never use it. We never push ourselves. So it's uncomfortable, but when you're practicing at home, no matter what it is, you can practice it with dexterity, with flexibility, but I like to use it in hymn tunes. Push yourself and put yourself into the zone which is actually uncomfortable. And the more you do that, and the more you push yourself, and the more breath control that you can gain from that, the better player that you will be. We've got cadenza. I've got cadenza next weekend at the Nationals, and the last phrase is probably about 6-7 bars long, but it's getting slower and slower and slower, and it's a really long note, and I feel myself sort of hyperventilating after it. But what I've started to do is I've started to extend that note further past what I need to, so that when I come to play it, it doesn't feel as long a note. People do that with high notes. If you've got a solo with a top C in it, you might take it up a semitone or a tone, so you finish on a D or you reach a D, just so that you know that you can get that D, then the C is becoming much easier. So yeah, breathing is definitely something that you can practice, but just remember it never ever comes from the chest. It's much deeper than that. Also, a little tip to note is that a silent breath is much better than that kind of breath. If you're breathing like that, and you'll hear loads of people do it, then you can hear it's just all from the chest. You see the shoulders come up and the chest comes up, so it's got to be a silent breath is going to work for you. Cool. So that's a little bit about breathing. We'll talk about stamina now. I've not really got a particular order that I'm going to talk about these things in, but I will try and create a nice flow. Now, stamina is something that I struggled with a lot when I was younger, and I think part of the reason was because I wasn't breathing properly. Obviously, when you breathe properly and you support the instrument, then you basically replacing air with, or you replacing pressure with air. Excuse me, and that was exactly my problem. So what I was doing is I was probably using 70% pressure, let's say, and 30% air. Well, if you imagine that if you're using 70% pressure, all that's going to happen is your mouthpiece is going to hit your lips, and ultimately, it's just like bash, 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 bash. So you're going to have no stamina left whatsoever. There's no blood going through the lips, so they can't vibrate freely. So we rely a lot on air to support the notes that we need to play, and I think that with stamina, it's something that you can develop over time. It's not something that you get given some exercises tomorrow and you play and you think, oh, that's it now. I can play for 5 hours and it'd be fine. Stamina is very, very much like weight training and about building muscle. Now, again, Steve Stewart, rest in peace. He said, he's not died, don't worry, but he says, rest and play, and it's completely true. Yeah, you have to rest and play. So, in your practice, if you're playing for, let's say, I say playing, if your practice time is 1 hour, then maybe that practice time is going to be spent, or it's going to be extended rather to, let's say, an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and a half, just to allow yourself a little bit of time within the practice just to take it off the chops. Now, I've got this little book here called Tom's Traveling Tutor, and Bob Childs made this for me when I joined the band, or shortly after when I joined the band. And what this is, it's a mini arbin, basically. So I've got lots and lots of different exercises from the arbin in this book. But you'll see that the exercises, I'm sure you can see this, the exercises are fairly short in length. Yeah, there's nothing too strenuous in there. So basically this book is covering everything that you need to do as a brass player: articulation, dexterity, multiple tonguing, you name it, chromatic scales, it's all in there. But as you can see, the exercises are fairly short. So what that does, it means that you're resting, or you should rest in between. So let's say the exercise is 30 seconds long, take 20 seconds off. Let's say the exercise is 40 seconds long, take 30 off. Okay, so rest, play, rest, play, rest, play. And the best way I can compare this to is walking into a gym, and because I know a famous brass player that reckons to build stamina, then you have to play all 14 studies in the album back to back. Well, that might work for this player, but for the majority of us, that's not going to work. So that's like going to a gym and just lifting weights non-stop for the hour. And what's going to happen? You're just going to damage your muscles. So as I said, it's really, really important to rest and play. Now, if I were to draw you a graph of my sort of practice hour, let's say I practice for an hour. It's usually about an hour and a half, but let's say I practice for an hour, okay? And I'm going to draw you a graph of what my practice looks like. So on the left-hand side, we've kind of got range, or let's get stamina / range. How hard are you working? Low C, middle C, top C. And along the bottom here, we've got the time. So 20 minutes, 40 minutes, and 60 minutes. So what a bad practice would look like is something like this. Okay, so you can see that there's basically no warm-up there. They've gone straight from the warm-up. They've probably played some top Cs and then gone into a solo, probably a few low notes here and then another solo. So there's no consistency whatsoever, okay? Now, if you did that in the gym, you just wouldn't build muscle. And in fact, you do quite the opposite. You would damage them. So this is the way that I kind of think about my practice and the way I would encourage anyone to think about their practice. So, and this is, God's honest truth, after 20 minutes, I haven't hit a middle C. I promise you, I haven't hit a middle C after 20 minutes because I've not warmed up this part of my range. So there's no point trying to play a middle C when my bottom notes and the bottom register is not secure. So after about maybe 25 minutes, I'll reach a middle C here, okay? And then this part of the practice is still used to warm up. As I say, I've not hit a top C yet. And obviously, take this with a pinch of salt. You might play a top C and hit a top C and then come back down. But generally, following this line. So this part of the practice is where you're really going to hit it hard and where you're really going to go to town and work on a solo or some exercises or a study or something that's going to be quite stamina sapping. But you can't do that here. If you do that at the start, then you're just going to damage your muscles. So have a little think about that graph and about how you can use that kind of thought process in order to build stamina. And just remember that just equate it to going into a gym. So if you went into a gym, what would you do? You would warm up first of all, you'd do a few light weights, and then as the session progresses, you would start to build up weight and to work the muscles. I mean, as you know, when you work out in a gym, you're basically tearing muscle, but if you tear it too much, then you'll just damage it. And it's exactly the same with playing the brass instrument. There's a guy in America called Scott Belk, and he's got a brilliant book. And within the book, it just says it's got like 40 hints at the start, and it says if it starts to hurt, stop. So you might have felt a sharp pain in your chops before at some point when you're playing. If that's the case, just stop. That's not doing you any good. Okay. So stamina is something that is really, really important, because it means that we can play without getting tired. But just remember that don't use too much pressure, and think about how you can build that muscle. Now, it might be that you only have half an hour to practice, in which case then, you basically get acclimatized to that. And I'll give you an example of that in a minute. But if you have only got half an hour to practice, then you're probably going to fill it a little fuller than perhaps someone that's got 2 hours to practice, that may allow more, or have more time rather in between to build up or to rest rather, in order to build stamina. But the one example I'm going to give is from a few years ago now, when I was at Black Dykes. I was the third solo cornet, and the second woman down was a lady called Morven Gilchrist. And Morven went to the Royal Northern. She sort of followed the same path that I did, or I followed the same path that she did rather. And she was an unbelievable player, but her cornet stayed in the boot of the car every night of the week. It only came out for rehearsal on a Monday, rehearsal on a Thursday, and then a concert the weekend. And being a student and practicing 3-4 hours a day, I couldn't fathom why she was stronger than me. She was playing higher, she was playing louder, she was playing longer, she's got more stamina than me. So I was thinking, that's not right. How is that? Because I'm doing way more practice than she is, and she knew that, and I knew that. But what it is she'd put the money in the bank. So all her money was spent at university, probably on beer, but actually, putting the time and the practice into the bank, so that when she's finished university, she takes it out of the bank. It's when you build up a certain set of muscles, they never really die. They stay there in the background. But because she built a real good basis for her playing, it means that she can just pick it out 3 times a week and play better than the most of us can. And she could probably do that now. But it's about getting used to what you do. So for me, I practice every day, and I'm used to that. If I was to practice like Morven did every 3 days, then I'd probably get used to that as well. But it's just getting into a routine and having a balance which is right for you, and that allows you to play and obviously and do the things that you want to do. So that's a little bit on stamina there. I hope that's helped. Let's talk about flexibility now. Now, flexibility is something that I spend most of my practice on, really. And flexibility is the art of changing note, really, isn't it? Going from one note to the other. And so, by definition, it is quite important. Now, I think there's a couple of rules that I follow with flexibility. I think of vowels all the time, so O, A, and E, and you can say this with me. If you say O, and you can also say this now, obviously I can't hear you, but if you say O, 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 think about the position of your mouth, so your embouchure, but also think about where your tongue is in the mouth as well. So we say it a few more times, O, 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 O. So the embouchure is quite, well, it's open, isn't it? It's like an O shaped, it's round. And the tongue is low in the mouth, so it should be low in the mouth. O, 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 okay? Now, if you said A, so the embouchure should be fairly natural here, and the tongue is pretty central, quite in the middle, okay? And now if you said E, you'll feel that the embouchure tightens and that the tongue is raised. So if I was singing you a scale now, I'd go, not very in tune, I know, but you can hear the difference between the O, okay? So to be able to, first of all, to be able to vocalize when you're playing is really important. I've got a few students that I'll say, sing me this note, and they'll go, no. No, listen to the pitch. So to be able to vocalize it is really important as well. But understanding that your tongue is primarily responsible for changing pitch, and I'll come on to more about that in a second. But think about those vowels, O, A, and E. they will really help you. And as I said, because the tongue is responsible, if you can master that, that's going to make your life a lot more easier when using flexibility. So to talk about how flexibility actually works, well, there's three things that happen when we change note, and this is without using any vowels. The air has to move, the tongue has to raise or fall, and the embouchure has to tighten or loosen. Now, I think that the least significant one of those three is actually the embouchure. The more still you can keep your embouchure, and this goes for everything that you play, the better. The less this moves, the better. Obviously, when we change note, certainly when we're going up, we have to use a little bit more air. But I think actually when we descend, it's the same as well. People think we back off when we go lower. I actually think if you're going up, if you've got a, no matter where you're going up or where you're going down, you crescendo it. And that way you're keeping the airflow going through the note. The other thing to note is the tongue, as we said. The tongue will raise or it will fall depending on whether you're going higher or lower. And then the other thing was obviously the embouchure, which does tighten, and obviously these corners will control that. But the most important thing to note with flexibility is that if those three aspects don't work in a split second, then you either get a delayed note or a fluffed note or a kind of a scoop up. So those three things, the tongue, the embouchure, and the air, have to work in a split second. And Dave Charles does this a little bit, I think, better than anyone. If not, maybe really obviously at times. He crescendos between one note to another. So I'll give you an example. What should I play? Gabriel's oboe, he does, isn't he? So it's certainly when he's ascending. If I was to do that in slow motion, you would hear it a bit better. It's just a small crescendo at the end of the note. It's like a springboard, actually, that will help him or help us get to the next note. And really what I find amazing about Dave's playing is that he never really fluffs any notes. And I think that's probably part of the reason, because the air is going that direction every single time. Okay, so think about those three things: the embouchure, the tongue, and the air. If they all work together, you get a clean a clean interval, not a clean flexible, a clean interval. If one of them is slightly off, then you won't get that cleanly. Now, what can you do to practice? Yeah.
Sorry to be difficult. Because we want to hear your playing, we need to get you to turn on your high fidelity settings and turn off your background noise.
Okay, so I'm on audio. So turn off background noise, yeah?
Yeah, turn that off and make sure high fidelity is turned on in your advanced settings.
That's a good solo, that, isn't it?
That's a lovely solo, but we didn't hear it.
Oh, we had a couple of notes, and they were beautiful. Like they were.
Oh, thanks. I only played a few anyway. Let me just try this. Let's see if this works again. Brilliant. Perfect. Do you want me to repeat any of that again then?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. So as I was saying, Dave Charles accelerates the air in a crescendo form at the end of every note, or most notes, certainly one with a bigger interval. So I'll play you a little. I'll just play it all again now, so you can hear what I was on about. So hopefully you all heard that a bit better now. Brilliant. So as you can hear, it's generally on the A's in that particular phrase, in that passage, but there's a crescendo at the end of it to sort of springboard you up to the next note. Okay, so those three things: articulation, airflow up to the note, tightening the embouchure or loosen it depending on which way you're going, and moving the tongue. They have to happen in a split second. So good books to practice flexibility on is definitely the Charles Collins Lip Flexibilities, volume 1 to 3, all comes in the same book. It's a red book. I think you can get a PDF version. But I also sell it on the cornetshop.com, little plug there. But yeah, it's a really useful book. And the other one is How Brass Players Do It by John Ridgeon, but it's kind of geared, I'd say, more to intermediate to advanced rather than the Charles Collins is definitely an advanced book. Not that we can't all play it. It just has some advanced studies in. Obviously, they start a little easier as well. But yeah, flexibility for me is probably after breathing and sound the most important thing for any brass player. Now let's talk about tone and sound. So tone and sound are, as I just alluded to, probably the most important thing for a brass player. Phil Cobb's granddad, Phil Cobb is the principal, he was principal at LSO, but he's now at the concert orchestra. His granddad said to me, is a really famous Salvation Army cornetist, Roland. He said, you can work on technique, but you can't buy a sound. And that kind of stuck with me, because I think that whilst part of that is true, you can improve your sound, and I'm going to tell you how. So can you all do this for me? Can you all put your hand up? And this is great because we're all behind our computer screen, so there's no danger of us spitting over anyone or anything like this. But can you purse your lips like this and just blow a thin stream of air onto your hand? So you should feel that to be lukewarm at the most, maybe cold. Now imagine that you steam in the mirror up. It should be a lot warmer, so you should feel some heat there. Okay, so if you put cold air down your instrument, guess what? You get a cold sound. If you put warm air down the instrument, you get a warm sound. Okay, so maybe you can all try that later at some point. If you put cold air down the instrument, cold sound, warm air, warm sound. Something to note is what kind of sound do you want to make as well. So that's quite interesting in itself. If you're going for a really hard trumpety sound, then that's fine. So be it, go for it. But for me, I'm looking for the fattest, the widest, the most open, perhaps in some respect the darkest tone that I can. And one player that I listen to intently is David Dawes. So David Dawes, he still is an amazing cornet player. He took a break on euphonium for a while, but he's from the Salvation Army, so he didn't compete in any bands. But he's one of my biggest idols, really. And I listen to exactly how he sounds, and it's just fat. It's just a fat with a ph. Yeah, it's a really, really wide sound. Excuse me. So I try and emulate that kind of sound, and almost try and manipulate my tongue and my embouchure to create that sound. I talk about the didgeridoo, and you'll know much more about this instrument than I do. But am I right in saying that you use your tongue in order to create different sounds? Is that a thing?
You use everything, but ladies aren't allowed to play the didgeridoo, Tom. You'll have to ask the boys.
Wow, in 2021, that's not
right,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be some kind of forum that'll kick up a fuss about that.
No, multiphonic says everything with the didgeridoo. And circular breathing. It's everything. It's everything. Okay. Yeah.
So what I try and do is move my tongue around to try and find the sweet spot and almost make I'm going to sound silly now, but a didgeridoo kind of sound. So. So I kind of move my tongue around in the mouth, high, low, back, forward, excuse me, and I try and find the sweet spot. The sweet spot for me, for the best sound, is always where the tongue is furthest out the way. And if anyone's got a cornet or an instrument in front of them now, you can probably try this, playing a note and then putting your tongue right in front of the mouth. You just get a rubbish sound, a naff sound. So keep the tongue as far out the way as possible and experiment with that at home. You know, play some long tones and just move that tongue around, and you'll find the sweet spot. You'll hear the sweet spot rather. The other thing is to keep your throat open. I think this is a massive mistake with a lot of for a lot of brass players. And it's like when we sing. I mean, I'm not a very good singer, but if I was to sing, Nes and Doma, my throat is so closed. So when we sing, we have to keep the throat open. Nes and Doma. Yeah. So it's a big difference in I think the way that you open your throat and close your throat into how you sound as well. Now, I'm from Yorkshire, so if I were to speak where I'm from like this, it'd sound a bit like this. You probably wouldn't understand half words I'm saying because it's right Yorkshire. So when I went to Wales, they speak, oh, right, boy, bloody hell, it's lovely day down here, isn't it? Oh. So that's kind of how the Welsh speak, and it's very, as you can hear the difference in the way that it sounds. One is very nasally and high pitched like that; it's coming from the throat, and one is really, beautiful day, isn't it? Oh, bloody hell, but that's the way that the Welsh speak, is the way that the Yorkshire people kind of speak. I'm generalising a little bit, but I think there's a correlation to how bands in Yorkshire sound as to how Corey sound. So when I don't want to talk out of place here, but Brighouse in like the early 2000s, they were quite a hard sounding band. They're not anymore, but they used to be quite harsh. And then you think where they come from, they're all from that part of the world. And then when I came down to Wales, honestly, the sound of the band is just completely different. And I think that is attributed to the way that we speak and the accents that we use. So I almost had to not change my accent, but almost change the kind of sounds that I was making into my instrument to kind of fit in with a bigger sounding band that I was now in. So you can change your sound. So don't ever think that maybe what I said earlier about what Roland Cobb said is true, because I think that some people are born with a good sound, but it is something that you can develop and that you can practice. An obvious one is mouthpiece, isn't it? I mean, if you're a cornet player and using a trumpet mouthpiece, then you're going to sound like a trumpet player playing a cornet. And if you're a trumpet player using a cornet mouthpiece, you're going to sound like a cornet player playing a trumpet. So that's the obvious one. I don't want to touch too much on that, but using the right equipment, of course, is important. Good. Articulation, one of my favorite topics. Articulation is pretty important, isn't it? It's being able to start notes, and one of the hardest things to do is on a contest stage, maybe start a solo or an entry at double piano or with a soft tongue. Everyone can use a hard tongue, no problem at all, but it's really the soft articulation that's the hardest. And I'll tell you a little bit on how you can improve this. So in 2010, we played a piece called The Red Priest at the British Open by Philip Wilby. And there's a solo in the middle of it. It starts in the top G that goes something like this. So it involved coming on a top G double piano. And so my worst kind of fear was just going da 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 and coming in on that double forte and just articulating the hell out of it. So I had to practice a way in which I could not do that, or in which I wouldn't do that. And I found that through air attacks. So air attack is something that I practice all the time. I'm actually probably quite a lazy tonger, actually, so maybe I rely on this too much. But yeah, using air attacks for me is a way of starting the note without hitting it, without using an articulation, just so that you can come in. I think it's a really, really good tool to have, and it also makes soft articulation a lot easier as well. So I'll come on to that in a second. But with an air attack, as I said, the aim is to start the note from not necessarily nothing. You can do that, but to start it from a point in which there's no front to the note. So something like this. So I'm not sure how well you can hear that. I'm putting a little bit of air through the note through the mouthpiece before, ha, and when I want the note to speak, ha, I just increase the amount of air that's going through. A lot of jazzers do it before they play, that kind of stuff, but it's slightly different in the way that we do it. So what you can do at home is practice it in this manner. So start getting the air through the mouthpiece, and then when you want the note to speak, just increase that airflow, and you should get something like. So hopefully you can hear the air before, and just through practice and through repetition of that, it means that you find the point at which the note speaks with the requisite amount of air. A lot of the time with production and articulation, the common mistake is that we go and we tongue the note, but there's no support behind it. So what air attack does, it gets the air going from the start. So first of all, you can use a hard tongue. That's no problem at all. We're not really going to talk about that. You can now use an air attack. So it means that you can start at any dynamic the note without a tongue. Now, that actually makes soft tonguing quite easy. because, as I said, the common mistake is to tongue but actually have no sound behind it. When we use a soft tongue, because we're trained and we've trained ourselves to use the air attack so that the air is immediate, it's instant, then the tongue is just so insignificant. It's just really, really slow. But as long as the air is behind it, you're going to be fine. So you can probably hardly hear the soft tongue there because I'm trained in using the air attack. The tongue it's like the cherry on the top. It's just a really it's so small, honestly. So when you're articulating, don't think that you use a soft tongue. It's got to be a big ta and then play really quiet. It's a really slow attack. The difference between a hard attack and a soft attack is really just the speed in the tongue. You can all try this now. So if you say ta 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 and then ta 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 after it, you should find two things: that the syllable is slightly different. It's more of a d than a t, but the tongue is definitely slower. So I'll say this with me now. So let's try the hard tongue. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta ta ta. Now soft. Ta ta ta. The syllable's different and the tongue just moves slower. Okay, so practice air attacks. They are so beneficial, and they make articulation easy ultimately. Okay. Now, next thing is range. I'm not going to talk too much about range because everyone wants to play high and everyone wants to play, like Maynard and all this. But really, it's insignificant to what we have to do as brass banders. So, if you were to find any piece of music, I got loads of pieces of music behind me there. I reckon 95% of all the music that I own does not go above a top G. I'll say that again. About 95% of all the music I own doesn't go above a top G. So why do we get so hung up about playing high all the time? I know people that will warm up with high notes, that will just play high notes through their practice, and it just does them no good. For a start, you'll just damage muscles, but also we don't need it. This practice routine that I have here taught me a lot of things, but actually it taught me that if I have a good range between like a bottom C and a top G, and I'm strong in that register, then anything that I need to go above that is going to be easy because I've got the foundation set and I've got a good setup, I've got good stamina, I'm strong, so it means that the top notes are going to be easier. I mean, the first rule to note is that to play high you have to be in good shape. I think that's probably a given, but after that it comes through understanding that the embouchure is got to be correct. I'll speak a bit more about it in a second, using plenty of air support, and that your flexibility is good. Again, the Charles Collins Lip Flexibility book is great for working high notes. I used to actually have a break in my embouchure. I used to go, I'll show you, I used to go, and have to move it. So some of you might have experienced or have the same issue. So the flexibility books really just negate that, and they start you from the middle, that you work up, down from the same point each time. But yeah, high notes are something that I don't really practice. I know that if I'm strong and if I'm in good shape and I've got good stamina, then they're going to come. Practice routine. I've talked a little bit about this, but maybe we should go into a bit more detail about a practice routine. So I think that being a successful brass player or a good brass player is a lot like building good foundations for a house. So if all your tools are sharp in your toolbox, then the house is going to be pretty tidy. If your tools are not so sharp, then the house and the foundations won't be as good. So the way I'm going to compare this to brass playing is that if your articulation, if you're multiple tonguing, if you're slurring, if your dexterity, if all that's good, the solo or whatever you're about to play is going to be pretty good. If all that's a bit rusty, then expect the foundations of the solo not to be so good. So why am I saying this? Well, I think that no matter what standard you are, it's really important not just to practice solos. And look, I'd be the first person to say that I sometimes just play solos in my practice routine, in my practice time. If I've not got anything on, or I'm just a bit bored, or a little bit of a loose end, I'll just play solos. Why? Because it's fun. But I know that that's a bad practice. I know that I've not done anything there constructive. So yeah, I'll slap my hand, and tomorrow is going to be better today. But the reason that it is so important is just to keep everything in check. So a few years ago, when we prepare for competitions with the band, I'd make sure that the solo that I was playing within the test piece, I'd practiced so much and I'd played so much that there's no way that anyone could have played that any more than I can. So it was kind of a mental thing to know that when I went on stage, then I was going to be more prepared than anyone else. But I've kind of changed that thought process, because if I'm in good shape for what I've got to do, then then what I'm going to do is going to be fine. So I just kind of take care of the basics and make sure that everything is in check, so that the solo is going to be fine no matter what. So I don't necessarily need to just hammer that solo. For example, there's and what I should say is that there are times where I do tailor my practice to what I've got coming up. To give you an example, the solo that I've got to do in Heroes, this Nationals piece, one of them is a lot of double tonguing on a top A, which is awkward. It's awkward as hell. So what I've been doing is practicing double tonguing on the top G, A, B, and C. And just to get myself used to, or just to basically increase that part of my practice, double tonguing in a high register, because I need to use it. So yeah, having a routine of some sort is essential. So after you've done your warm up, I go straight into this routine. I don't do necessarily all of it every day, but I make sure I cover most of it. And then after that, I'll do the fun stuff. I'll do the solos and the band music. But if you can at least put, let's say, 30 or 40% of your practice time into some kind of routine, it's going to be so beneficial for you. So as I said, to keep the foundation strong, you need good articulation, so good single tongue, a little bit on multiple, a little bit of on dexterity, some chromatic scales in there, some variety of articulation, some intervals, some octaves. So I mean, you could go through this yourself, and you could devise your own routine, but it just means you're just keeping things in check and just keeping things ticking over. And look, this book that I've got here, it doesn't spend 10-15 minutes on triple tonguing. It doesn't spend 10-15 minutes on flexibility. They're just small bite-sized exercises from each category. So I've probably got 3 or 4 exercises on double, 3 or 4 on triple, some and probably the same for every kind of area. And that might only be a couple of exercises for you. It could be 10 exercises. It depends how much time you've got, of course, and how much effort you want to put into it. But by just having something, it's definitely going to be better than just playing solos and just playing band stuff. Because if you played, if you practiced 3 solos over the course of a year, you get really good at those solos, but you wouldn't really improve on anything else. Whereas if you improved all the basics, you'd be way better at the solos. Okay, so this is, as I said, basically a mini album. If you can create one of these for yourself, that'd be great. You can see it's really quite thin. It probably takes me about 45 minutes to go from top to bottom. But yours could be 10 minutes, it could be 20 minutes, it could be half an hour, it doesn't matter. But as long as you're covering just a little bit, even a few exercises, even one exercise on single, double, triple, all those kind of key characteristics of playing a brass instrument, then that's going to stand you in great stead for whatever you've got to play. Vibrato. Now, vibrato is quite a contentious subject, as you might well know. I mean, what is vibrato? Vibrato is ultimately colouring the airstream, so it's making the note sound pretty. I remember going to New Zealand actually and having an argument with someone in a brass band that I was visiting, a friendly argument, that he reckoned that vibrato was no good for brass bands because it just made the note go out of tune. So whilst I agree with him, the note does go out of tune, it also blends the section really well, doesn't it? So it's quite important to use. I used to use vibrato in a strange way. I used to use an air vibrato. So it was kind of a... So I was just using the air to push back and forth to create this oscillation. And that's of course bad because the air has got to be constant. You've got to keep the air going straight through the instrument so that you can control it. Vibrato with air is not the best way. There's a couple of other ways. Again, the late Steve Stewart, he's not died, don't worry, but he uses his hand. Kind of a jazzy vibrato. Again, I'm not sure that for me that's the best vibrato to use in a brass band setting because, as we know in competitions, sometimes we shake, and then if you're relying on your hand to create the vibrato, your vibrato is going to be much quicker than you used to. So I don't think that's perhaps the best way. The way that I use it is just by it's kind of my embouchure and it's kind of my tongue. I'm going to come on to another well, it's actually the next topic, but about listening to others. And the person that inspired me for vibrato was a guy called John Doyle, the flugel player for Black Dyke a few years ago. If you listen to his sound is amazing, and his vibrato is just beautiful. But it's almost I don't know if I guess from looking at the screen, there's not too many youngsters here. So a few years ago, Budweiser released an advert, and it was like Bound Chicka Wow Wow. Do you remember that one? the Bound Chicka Wow advert, and it's that wow that I'm interested in, and what Doyle does is he almost uses his muscles here to create the vibrato, wow, and so I thought about it. I think about a lot of things with playing, and I kind of teach myself and experiment a lot. Maybe not teach myself. I experiment with different things, and what I found is that when you use vibrato from the chin, the conventional way, what that ultimately does is close your aperture up and then close the sound. So if I was to do this in a slow motion, so half of the note is actually thin. So what I try and do is I try and kind of use the sides and the corners of my mouth to use vibrato, and by doing that, it keeps the note open. So whereas the chin's going down, rah, rah, this is going bow, wow, 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 wow. So the note always stays wide. So maybe that wasn't my best example, but you can see that the note it just doesn't close anywhere near as much. So maybe you can experiment with that and try different ways of using vibrato, preferably not with the hand or with the air, but try and move your embouchure from the side. Wow, 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 wow. It's not something that I would advocate a lot of the time, because it works for me. I don't know whether it would work for you. It may do, but that's something that you can experiment with, and I think that's why it's quite important to experiment. I mean, I play golf, not to a great standard, but I've sort of taught myself to play golf, and there's so many different ways that you can swing a club, or where's the ball in the stance, you're moving left, right, back foot. There's just so many different things that you can take care of in golf, and it's the same with playing a brass instrument. You look at some of the crazy golf swings of the world, the Jim Furyk's and the Bubba Watsons. They're crazy, but they work for them. So find something that works for you. Not talk about golf at the moment because Europe are getting absolutely thrashed in the Ryder Cup, but you guys probably don't care about that. So, but yeah, listening to others and finding that your style is something that's important. I'll come on to it, but just to summarize with vibrato, listen to some of the best players, or the players that you like listening to, and basically just try and copy it, try and put it into your playing. Listen to how fast. I mean, one thing that I always do is listen to a lot of jazz music. So Chet Baker is probably my favorite jazz musician, and the way that he sings is fascinating, because he sings in the same style that he plays the trumpet, and he plays the trumpet in the same style that he sings, and you kind of have to listen to it to understand what I mean by that. But when I listen to Chet Baker, I don't just listen to it. There's a difference between hearing music and listening to music, isn't there? When I go into a shop, I hear music in the background. I don't listen to it. When I listen to music, I'm concentrating on it. And if you listen to Chet Baker, the way that he starts the note, at what point does he start the oscillation, the vibrato? How wide does it go? How fast does it go? What happens at the end of the note? Does he tail it off? And you could analyze that with any musician, really. But that's the kind of process I think you've got to go through in order to really understand, how your vibrato you want it to be, and understand how they're using it as well. So listening to music is so important. I mean, when I went to university, I lived with two jazzers and a tenor horn player, and we just used to listen to music all the time. And actually, I did more jazz in college than brass band, but I only really picked up the jazzy style through listening to music and just talking to others about it. So yeah, listening to the players that you want to sound like is quite important. I mean, she won't mind me saying this, but Ailsa, my partner, she doesn't own one tenor horn CD, and I find that unbelievable. I can't believe that that she doesn't own a tenor horn. She's the solo horn of Corey band, but she's not got any tenor horn CDs. I can't understand it. But yeah, that's just her anyway. So yeah, just immerse yourself in as much music as possible, really. So yeah, that brings me on to style and listening to others. As I said, listening to music is so important, and you can learn so much from it. I know all the top cornet players certainly in the UK. I know they're playing inside out. And that's not because I know them personally. Some of them I do, but because I've listened to them so often. And first of all, I'm really competitive, so I always want to win. So if we don't win, I'll be listening to other performances and say, right, what did they do better than us? But first and foremost, I want to win all the time. So that's my main priority. But listening to how others do it is really, really important. So, for example, I think that the person, the cornet player with the best flexibility in brass banding is probably Richard Marshall. The way that he slurs between octaves is just seamless. It's like turning a light switch on. It's incredible. There's nothing in between. It's in a split second. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my flexibility as good as Richard Marshall's. I think Roger Webster's technique is awesome. Yeah. But I don't like his sound too much. Don't tell him that, because he'll beat me up. But I prefer David Dawes' sound. But I want Roger's technique. So Darren, I saw that. So I want, and I've seen your Everton shirt as well. I'll be having words later about that. So I want Roger's technique. He's got an amazing technique. I want David Dawes' sound. I want Phil Cobb's style. I want John Doyle's vibrato. I want Mark Wilkinson's consistency. So I know all of these players personally, but I know their strengths and weaknesses as well. So I can sort of not to say that I'm going to put all these in a box and become the best. Definitely not. But what I can do is I learned at university that I could never be Richard Marshall. He was my idol. He was my teacher. It was all I wanted to be. But I couldn't be Richard because we're just different people. But what I found is that I can be me, and it sounds a bit corny, doesn't it? It sounds a bit cheesy to say I can be me, but I had to find myself, and I had to find the things that I was good at. I had to look at the things that I wasn't good at, work on those, and play to my strengths. And that's kind of what I've done, really. I mean, Floyd Mayweather, the boxer, he's an absolute. Not a very nice man, I won't swear, but he's not a very nice man, but he's an amazing boxer. And I remember watching a program on him a few years ago, and he looked at all the top boxers, Sugar Ray Leonard, Lennox Lewis, Tyson, Ali, and he took all their best qualities and then put it into his practice, and then he became a pretty good boxer. So don't get disappointed or disheartened that you can't do something as good as someone else, because you'll be able to do something better than they can anyway. But maybe look at their best qualities and try and put that into your own playing. Targets, and in fact I'll leave that for a second. Dexterity. So something we haven't really, I think we've covered lots of things today, but something we haven't spoke about at the moment is dexterity and the art of playing quickly. I mean, we all want to play fast, don't we? For sure. Ultimately, dexterity comes from learning the scales. I mean, if I can only see about 6 people on the top of my screen here, but if I was to ask you how many people did scales every day, I reckon there'd be less than probably 5% that honest answers that would do scales. And really, it's as simple as that. If you learn your scales, then you become better at technique. And there's other things that you can do as well. There's the Herbert Clark book, Technical Exercises. That's a brilliant book for working your fingers. But really, there's no substitute for scales. I mean, I teach scales to my students, and I'm always encouraging them to play them quicker, because it's finger patterns, isn't it? It's all finger technique. So the better you can be at scales, and it's never too late to learn scales, by the way. I have one student who's been playing for over 30 years and has never done scales, and questions me, why are they important? But why do I need to know how many sharps are in the key signature? Why do I need to know how many flats? I'm like, oh, come on. So yeah, know your key signatures, know your scales, and it makes sight reading, it makes dexterity much easier. And the other thing I was going to talk to you about today is have targets and aims. No matter what standard you are, we can always improve, and we can always aim to reach a certain level. So when I was a youngster and I just started playing, I think my mum's got it at home actually. I was in year 6. I must have been about 8 or 9. The teacher asked us to draw like a picture of what you want to do when you're older. And I wanted to either be an opera singer on the Royal Albert Hall stage. I don't know where that came from, because I don't sing at all, as you've heard. I wanted to be an opera singer on the Royal Albert Hall stage, or play with Black Dyke. So I never sung on the Royal Albert Hall stage, but I did play with Black Dyke on the Royal Albert Hall stage. So that was something that obviously my mum treasures. But it's interesting that I knew exactly from a young age what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wasn't going to get there tomorrow, and I wasn't going to be playing Black Dyke in any time soon. But I knew that there were things that I had to do in order to get to that step, to get to that stage. So for me, it was always playing with a championship section band. That was my first big goal, and I did that when I was 16. After that, it was maybe going to the National Youth Band. Fantastic. I was on solo cornet, but right, let's get on principal. So I managed to do that. After that, let's get to Black Dyke. Yeah, I did that, and it's like, what's next? I'd like to sit principal at Black Dyke. Well, that's not going to happen because your teacher's there. So what can you do? So okay, well we'll go sideways and we'll go to Corey. And I did that. After I joined Corey, it's not a case of right, I've done it, I'm here. It's what next? So I'll do a solo CD. That'd be great. What next? So I'll do a concerto with the band. After that, let's do it without any music. After that, let's do another solo. So there's always things that I'm looking to do, and really, for the future, there's things that I still haven't done yet that I would like to achieve. But it's I think it's important to have an end goal, but have targets and little things that you can tick off in order to get to that goal. Because if I was to say I want to be principal trumpet of the Boston Pops Orchestra by Christmas time, that's just unrealistic. But if I was to say I'm going to be principal trumpet of Boston Pops in 10 years' time, then there are things that you're giving yourself time. There are things that you can do to implement into that process to help you get there. But that's not the case. I'm not going to leave Corey anytime soon. Don't worry. But yeah, I think that having goals and having targets to aim for and things, I think part of the issue with lockdown is that we didn't have any targets. We didn't have anything to do. We had no band rehearsal, we had no contest, we had no concert. Excuse me. So the diary is empty. What's the purpose of playing? I got asked this, so I'm not leaving Corey. Don't worry, Neil. I was asking, why do we play? I found myself asking this. Why do I play? Well, I play because I enjoy it first and foremost, but it's not very enjoyable playing by yourself. It's much more enjoyable playing with others, isn't it? So my target was really to keep my lip in shape so that when I did get back to band, then I'm not, first of all, I wasn't any worse off than where I left it, and that I can move forward. But yeah, I think it's really important to have things to aim towards and targets that you can look at and try and reach, because without those targets, we want to push ourselves in all walks of life, don't we? And I guess unless you're happy doing what you're doing, then we want to improve on our instruments as well. That was pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about today, and I did want to leave some time for questions as well, because I know there's quite a few that have come through. But yeah, first of all, does anyone have any questions about the topics that I've talked about there, or are they all in the chat, Philippa?
So what we've got is Neil's been very useful. So he's put a link in the chat. Can you scroll down, chat? He's put a link in the chat as a John Doyle example, and he's also, Neil Young has said, "You're not allowed to leave Corey, Tom!" Exclamation mark. Because we're all very happy about that. Harrison Steele Holmes, he's going to put a question in. But if anyone wants to ask a question, you put in the chat or unmute yourself and ask quickly something of Tom.
I've got a question, Tom.
Sure, Jamie.
Yeah, with the discussion on vibrato, how important is it to master a perfectly pure straight note before you even talk about using vibrato, and how do you use a straight note to enhance the use of vibrato? Because great question. What a lot of people here think is brass band is just vibrato everything. Like this is constant use, and it's not that. As you said, it's colouring the airstream. So
definitely, it's a really good question. So straight notes are important. I think there's some people that can only use vibrato, and there's some people that can only play straight. So you've got to be able to do both. I think that a lot of that, it comes down to style. So if you imagine in the 60s, 70s, 80s, when James Shepherd and Philip McCann were playing, they would put vibrato on absolutely everything. And it'd be one speed, and it would be just one dimensional. Don't get me wrong, it sounds beautiful, but it's not really the style that we play in these days. Why? I can't tell you why. Why do we wear, I don't know, skinny jeans, or why do we do our hair in a certain way, or wear a certain top? It's just fashion. It's just, times develop, and fashion, as just fashion. So what the kind of stylist to do now is not literally one note on, one note off with vibrato, but it's not dissimilar, it's not far off, and it just gives you a little bit of variation. So for example, the Solco Song to the Moon, if I was playing it, it'd be something. So probably only 3 notes with vibrato there.
Is that a tension and release kind of thing? Do you choose notes that build tension to play straight, and then do you release them with vibrato? Is that a kind of thing?
I've never thought about it like that, Jamie. I think that there's really no right and wrong answer. I mean, if I was to, I could do it a different way. So you could add vibrato on. It might sound the same actually, but you could add vibrato on slightly different notes, and it's not necessarily wrong. But yeah, I think what did you say then? Tension and release. I've not heard of that before, but you're right. What was it you said? Was that a tension and release?
That was it. I personally, when I play, I really like to build tension with straight notes, and then I like to release it with the color of vibrato for myself.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and I've never thought of it like that. But yeah, I think that's there we are. I've learned something as well. So I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try that later, definitely. But I think
Can I ask a question, Tom? Do you know the words to that song?
No. Are you gonna sing it to us?
No, no, because But do you know what it's about?
I don't know.
No, I'm not trying to pick on you. It's
no. Tell us.
When Jamie does his Up Late with Jamie Lawson CD.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That song is all about. It's about passion and loss, and she's singing about she's going to be foam on the sea about this guy. So there's so much passion in the song, and it's funny how when people do solos like that, they go for the beauty of the song rather than the passion of the song. And it's actually when you listen to she sings it in Czech because it's actually originally written in Czech. Famous, I can't remember her name. She's really good. And when you hear her sing in Czech and in the right thing, it's a totally different beast than how you hear cornet players, because it's such a beautiful line and it's a beautiful song. But that's just my little thing about knowing it. But we've got another question. Hi, Tom. My name's Harrison. I'm a first-year trombone student with the intention of gaining an orchestral job in the future. He's a really clever kid. David, he was one of the David King's bursary students with Dame from New Zealand? Adrian Stewart. So he's really good. And his question is, what do you think is a healthy amount of time spent on fundamentals and routine and repertoire and excerpts a day to keep both sides of your playing in check? So I think he's asking about the fundamentals and then the solo side of your playing.
I think for someone like Harrison, who's looking to be a pro, then it's probably about 50% really. I mean, I practice about an hour and a half a day, and at least the first 20-25 minutes is spent as a warm up. After that, I'll probably spend 45 minutes on basics, and then what does that leave me? Yeah, about 20-25 minutes on solos. So yeah, it's probably 50% Harrison that I spend on the basics. I mean, you get different answers. You get different people, of course, but Owen Farr will tell you to practice 6-7 hours a day. I'm not so sure that's quite productive. So I would probably recommend, if you're a university student, to be doing around about 3 hours practice a day. But yeah, I mean, splitting that time up practicing is also useful as well, Harrison. So maybe doing a little bit in the morning, afternoon, and evening, rather than just 3 hours at one go. I always compare it to elite weightlifters. You look at bodybuilders; they're in the gym 4 times a day at 4 different points. They don't cram it all into one go, just to build and rest the muscles. But yeah, I think that. If you were to aim for about, I don't know, let's say for someone like you, Harrison, an hour on your basics is going to be absolutely plenty for sure.
It is a question, and heck, we organise these masterclasses, so we get to pick the questions. But from Paula Hennessy, and this is Hesse, sorry. This is a question close to my heart too. Hi Tom, what are your views on using pedal notes in a practice routine? Or
pedal notes, yeah, fantastic. I use pedal notes all the time. I have an exercise that I start with, and it's a bit like the James Stamp book, one of the first exercises in that. It just goes dee da dee da 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 down to a bottom C, and then you start on the middle B dee da da and go all the way down to a pedal C. So I actually find pedals are what was the name of the lady that asked the question? Sorry.
Paula
Hesse.
Paula. Yeah, Paula. I find that pedals are really, really important. I mean, so one of my weaknesses a few years ago was playing low. I wasn't very good at playing low, and mainly because the majority of our notes on solo cornet like middle G to top C. So I had to really practice my low register. So let's say a bottom C was a really low note for me. What I did is I got control through this exercise that I just sort of sung to you all the way down to a pedal C. So in actual fact, if I can play a pedal C with good control, good sound, in tune, maybe even a bit of vibrato, it means that low C is no longer a low note anymore. It's quite a high note actually, because I've got so much control down there. So not only does it extend your range, it's great for your chops as well. I mean, obviously, a lot of people say that playing low and playing high. Playing low is good for playing high. I'm sure it is, but for me, it just really secures that bottom register, so that those low C's, those low B's, those A's, they're not actually low notes, because you've got another octave, or maybe another 2, or maybe another 3 below that as well.
Alex Putra has asked, what styles of music do you enjoy, and do you enjoy modern pop songs?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a 90s boy, really. Although I was born in 87, I grew up in the time of the Spice Girls and Steps and Bewitched. Yeah, I don't know if all these have made it over to your shores, but probably.
You look like a bit of a posh Spice, Tom.
No, I was always Baby, actually. Ginger, I like Jerry. Ginger Jerry.
That's right. I'm using Philip.
No, I've got 2 younger sisters as well, so I grew up. I like the Spice Girls, I'm unashamed to say, but no, I listen to a lot of pop music. Yeah, it's definitely not something that I shy away from. What am I listening to at the moment?
Grimes.
Grimes. Is that Elon Musk's partner? No, she looks a bit strange. No, I listen to a lot of rock music, Muse, bands like that. A lot of Britpop, so Blur, Arctic Monkeys. In fact, the place that I've just moved to now is famous for 2 things. Joe Calzaghe, the undefeated boxer, the former world champion, he lives about a mile up the road. And then the Manic Street Preachers, the famous Welsh band, they're from Blackwood, they're from this village. So I've been listening to a lot of them recently. But yeah, I really don't tend to listen to any brass band music at all. Really, I think that I'm so not sick of it. I'm fed it so much during the week that you want to switch off and listen to other things. But yeah.
So no, I need to just say something.
Okay.
I need to say something. So one of my short, medium, long-term goals is I'm going to come and conduct Corey at some stage and bring some Australian arrangements. One of them is an arrangement of Knights of Sidonia by Muse.
Wow.
Yeah, with all the vocals in it. So just so you know, can you just tell Phil that it's coming? Anyway, over to you.
He won't know who Muse are,
No, that's okay, because he won't be conducting it.
Oh, that's all right then.
I'll be conducting it.
It's hard to conduct that.
Yeah.
So from Sia, and this is interesting. Hi Tom, does your practice warm-up routine change when you're working on a jazz piece compared to a classical piece?
Proud of you, Sia.
Good question, but no, not really. I think my warm-up is there to make sure that I'm prepared for anything that you might have to play. So it doesn't really change too much at all. I might adapt it or my practice around the jazz solos that I got to do. Let's say if I've got lip trills to do, I don't tend to practice lip trills too much, but if I need to do them, then I'll have to practice them. So I might increase my lip trills or add some close flexibility into my warm-up routine. But no, it generally stays the same.
So do you see those, just extending on that a little bit, do you see those different styles as just a different accent, different language? Do you How do you? Because I've heard you play many, like what was that? The fire one, the Fiore.
Fuego.
Yeah,
Fuego.
that kind of stuff. Like that's a tech that's extended. That's extreme extended technique, especially for cornet players. Like, is that just you hear that and you recreate it, or is there something you specifically work on to create?
No, it comes from really just listening to it, Jamie, and really just trying to immerse yourself in the style that you're in. I wasn't born a particularly good jazzer. I don't think I'm a particularly good jazzer, but I think that I like it. I'm interested in the style. I'm interested. I mean, Doc Severinsen, he's one that I listen to quite a lot. Actually, I said I listen to bands, but I listen to a lot of that kind of style, Doc, and bits of Maynard and things like that. And you generally just pick up the styles, the little licks that they do, the tail ups at the end of the notes, or the falls, or whatever it might be. But it's something that I can't really put a finger on. Why I do it or how I do it. I just try and make it sound as best as I can. So like for Fuego, it's all technique, isn't it? Apart from those little jazzy interludes, and you've just got to make them sound as smoochy and as dirty as possible, really. And I think when I started at Corey, I was afraid to be expressive, and I haven't talked about expression. Maybe I'll talk about it quickly now, but I was afraid to sort of put myself out there. And when you walk on stage, our librarian used to play soprano with a band, Gwyn. He says to me, you got to go on there thinking, have an arc at this. And what that means, have an arc, have a listen at this. And that's kind of the attitude that you got to go on. You've got to go on stage thinking, right, this is me. I'm going to show you what I can do. But that's not my personality. That's not my nature. I'm quite introverted, really. So that was quite difficult to do. But I think once you kind of put yourself out there enough, or have been in the spotlight to a degree where you can feel confident just to really just put your foot down in whatever you've got to do and over exaggerate what you've got to do, then you're in a much better place. I mean, with expression, I should have talked about this earlier, but I think there's 4 key components to expression, or four ways that you can make up expression. There's vibrato, there's tempo, there's dynamics, and there's articulation. And if a bit more time, I should have spent talking on this. But with vibrato, for example, what I tend to do is take it away from my practice and try and make something sound as beautiful as I can without vibrato, and then I'll put vibrato back in. I'll take dynamics out and make it sound as good. So all these different tools of expression that you've got all kind of formulate to make whatever it is that you're playing, and obviously sometimes you might want to push a certain part of that expression. So for example, in Fuego, articulation is quite important to get that kind of hard, dead sort of style, but just as much as vibrato is important to change that style within that kind of music as well. So I've diverted a little bit there, but I hope that's answered your question.
No, it's great. John says, I just want to concur about learning to play some piece of music where that is what you get good at in the lead up to the performance. Since lockdown and no short-term targets, I've stopped playing the music and gone back to exercise and realised how de-skilled I've become. I think what John's saying is that when you're playing in the band, a lot of the music kind of covers the skills, and when you're not doing the band stuff and you're just at home doing whatever, your skills actually fall a bit by the wayside.
And just to add a little bit to that.
Oh, yes.
Because of the volume of music that we sort of are getting, I only give myself 30 to 40 minutes a day practice. So if I'm doing exercises, I'm not practicing the music. So the exercises go by the by when we're actually in the thick of things.
My answer to that would be maybe choose harder exercises. I think that if the band music is pushing you, but your exercises aren't, that just sounds like that your exercises are maybe too easy for you. So perhaps pick some exercises that are challenging. If you're practicing triple tonguing, you just practicing it on one note. Maybe practice it on different notes, and then literally different notes. But also, the fact that you're not playing in band doesn't mean that you can't play that music. So you could also be practicing some solos or some studies. There's plenty of studies in all the exercise books that I'm sure you've got, and maybe challenge yourself to learn a study once a week. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Without that band kind of repertoire and repetition that you get from weekly rehearsals, it's difficult to emulate that at home, but you can come as close to it as you can through things like studies and solos. I mean, we don't have to just practice exercises, because that would be pretty boring. The other thing that I did quite a lot during lockdown was play along to recordings. So I get my big headphones on, maybe get my band pad, or find some music off the internet. There's loads of music, or band music that you can download for free, and just find the recording and just play along with it. There's also a YouTube channel I think it's called American Soloist Album, and there are 15 or 16 Salvation Army backing tracks. But also it shows you the soloist part on the screen, so you get the solo part, and then you play along to the backing track. So I've been using that quite a lot. That's not going to test you, that's just slow melodies, but there are also other backing tracks on there for the Oscar Bohm, Four Peters, the Barats. There's loads and loads of pieces with backing tracks on. So there's plenty of things out there that you think you can find. But my first comment was probably the one that I stand with, is just choose some harder exercises and push yourself that way. Yeah.
Did you say the American Soloist album, Tom?
Yeah, I'm gonna find this now.
And the other thing is, a number of people have asked for your little book. Where can we get that, Tom? You will be uploading that, won't you, Tom?
It's not. Yeah, I can send that over. I'm actually going to try and sell it soon, but for the moment,
No.
Shush.
No.
Okay.
No. Can you get it somewhere so we can put it on a page to sell it for you?
No. I'm not going to. Oh, I'm just. I don't want any money for it. Honestly, It's only the Arbin exercises, but yeah. Eventually, I'm going to do one that's a little bit more.
But for now, so we'll put that up on the website if we can.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you, Philippa.
Yeah.
If I can put a link in the chat.
Put it in the chat, and then we'll put it on the webpage as well, and Facebook.
Well, I'll put a link in the chat for the accompaniment tracks as well.
Yeah.
I'll have to send you the practice thing later.
Yeah.
Now, it is a question that I'm quite curious the answer to, from Darren Jones, who's one of the finest cornet players in Australia. I think, Darren, correct me if I'm wrong, Warringah? I'm not.
No, I'm based on the Central Coast.
Isn't he?
Originally from what? I'm a Welshman.
Okay.
Hardest solo in a test piece you've had to play, and what's your favourite test piece?
Favorite test piece is usually the ones that we win. I like Extreme Makeover, but I think there's been loads of better pieces since then. I think the hardest solo, one of the hardest solos actually, was Brussels Requiem. There's a fast technical bit in that. That's quite hard. We played it again recently, and because we'd done one of the first performances of that at the Europeans. I thought it would come back to me quite quickly, but it didn't. So that was one of the hardest solos. But yeah, I mean, my favourite piece is probably Resurgam. That's a cracker. But we're doing a new CD at the moment called Variations. So we're doing a variety of pieces that have variations from them. So the Vaughan Williams variation, that's a brilliant piece. And a couple of old school ones I've not heard of. One called Main Street by Eric Ball.
Yeah.
It's like the test piece. You know that one? You
Yeah.
remember that from the 60s, do you? No, but yeah, that's a great piece, and it's nice to get some of the golden oldies out again. But yeah.
It's funny with Resurgam because we're in Glenferrie in Melbourne, which is a combination of Kew and Hawthorn, A grade. We did a bands festival. Skunkworks created a bands festival up in Bright, Victoria. Some people might know, but it's this beautiful place. And so we had Glenferrie band, but we also had the youth band, Hyde Street Youth Band, that I conduct as well. So I put Resurgam into our program, and those kids, like we're talking, 12 to 18-year-olds, were blown away by that piece of music. And the reason why I put it in there is because when Corey Band came here, when you remember when you came here, I can't remember the year, and you played Resurgam, it's one of those things where you just go, it's just perfect. It's a perfect little vignette of brass band. It's got all the bits, and the kids just thought it was the most amazing thing. And it's such an inspiration of that piece, and it's so old, but so beautiful.
We do a concert every year in Sweden, and on the Sunday morning we always do a church service for the guy that runs it. and it's in the middle of this forest, this little church. It's a tiny church. You probably only get 200 people crammed in, and it's not a dressed up thing. We just wear our walking out uniforms, but it's a mini concert within the church service. And the guy that runs this service has had a few issues in life, and so he reads this kind of sermon, and then we play Resurgam after it. And I'll tell you, it just gives me goosebumps thinking about it now. It's just beautiful to play that piece in a church in a religious setting. In the middle of Sweden. It's quite surreal, really. But yeah, amazing piece.
And that's why we do music. It's for those moments. They come by so rarely, but they are so special that you spend your life. It's like Lassiter's gold. You're trying to find that little bit of gold, and for a whole life, it's worth it. Wish someone would play Life Divine again. And Andrew, he's written anything Eric Ball wrote is going to be gold, and it's. John, no, don't worry about unmuting. Absolutely.
Ages ago.
Oh, yeah,
You're
but no, John, no. It's the muting thing is mostly for kids and people that are rat bags that just don't stop talking. Paul has written, do you recommend standing or sitting when practicing?
Good question, Paul. I tend to
Depends
sit.
how lazy you are. Yeah, because you're lazy.
If I'm practicing a solo that I have to stand up for, then I stand up. But also when I teach in college, I make all my students stand up in college. I stand up to teach them as well. So.
Can I just say that Jamie, for a competition, sorry, I need to tell everyone this. He was going to be, it was going to be wherever it was, I can't remember what it was going to be hot. And we were in Brat, and he stood under a heater to get used to being hot. So he stood under a heater to be hot and sweaty to prepare for a solo. But anyway, sorry, that's just a by the by. Noah, hello Noah. Noah, I think Noah's from Ballarat maybe. How much time would you practice scales per session?
Oh, Noah, I don't practice scales anymore. I did them enough when I was younger. No, I say this because I can play all my scales, but when I was younger, I would be spending easy 15 minutes a day on scales probably, honestly. But it's like riding a bike. Once you learn them, you don't have to learn them again. It's muscle memory.
It's neural pathways.
Do you, Tom? Do you use circular fourths or fifths or anything like that?
No, I don't do. No. Maybe I should do, but yeah.
No, why? It's just whatever method works. Bugatti Chiron has written, "Hi Tom, what do you do in your spare time?" Clearly, it's golf. And,
absolutely, it's golf. Yeah, golf, bit of tennis. And yeah, I watch sports. We don't really watch TV. We watch sports. So I say we. So I love all sports. Yeah, me and my royal we. Yeah.
Okay. Paul is asking, triple tongue, do you use tutuka or tukata? So tutuka.
Tutuku or tukatu.
Okay, tutuka or tukatu.
I use neither. I use tutuka. The tutu is all posh. That's posh, that. Yeah, tutuka.
Duduga.
Okay. So it's getting a bit out of control. What books are on your music stand? That's from Harry. Yep.
They're all behind me. So I've got the Arbon, I've got the Charles Collins, got the Vizuti's New Concepts, the James Stamp, Tom's Travelling Tutor, obviously.
Which is going to
just to be honest, I say this in jest, but if you go on the cornetshop.com and look at all the study books, that's all I've got.
Yep. Do you consider soprano cornet a different beast to B-flat cornet, and how much of an influence has the Salvation Army music had on your playing?
Yes, I think the soprano is definitely a different beast. You've got to be a little bit cuckoos to play it.
A little bit.
I say that a little bit. Yeah.
Yep.
It's really, really different. I don't know too much about the soprano, to be honest, but I know that you've got to have a good relationship with him or her because they help you out if they're a good soprano player, and you it's give and take really. So if you've got someone that's willing to work, then the section works far better. And then Salvation Army music, I wouldn't say the music had much of an impact on me, but I think the institution in itself and the people around it have. Two of my best mates from the Salvation Army, I spent a bit of time there when I was younger, not as a servant or anything like that, but just being in the services and just being around it, and yeah, it's kind of a real I always come out there feeling a better person and feeling refreshed and almost soothed, healed, so to speak. Not that they're healing anything in particular, but I just feel that, eventually I will, maybe if I won't join, I'll start to go to services, because it's just full of wonderful people, and yeah, I can't say enough good things about the Salvation Army, certainly in the UK at least anyway. But yeah, they've helped me a lot, and yeah, I have many close friends and close links with them.
Yeah, it's really good. Greg wants to know about your mouthpiece.
It's metal. I'm joking. It's a Dennis Wick 4. It's actually pretty disgusting.
Yeah, it's a bit. Oh, that's a bit manky.
That's a good Salvation Army mouthpiece.
That
right
I think perhaps that needs a bit of recoating and maybe a little bit of scrub inside, Thomas.
Well, yeah, I think the scrub inside probably. I don't want to recoat it though, because I mean, my predecessor Ian Williams, who was in my seat at Corey before me, he actually used to sand his mouthpiece down, and so when he would play, and this is the truth, God rest his soul, but he'd go like this.
I'll see ya.
And it'd be so thick, so he'd kind of screw his piece on. So the mouthpiece would be rough, so it'd stick on. And because this isn't smooth, this is it's got like rough edges. It kind of has the same effect. It kind of just sticks to my. The little bit of
a bit of thing. Okay, we've taken way too much of your time, Tom. So we'd like to thank Tom. It's so it's just fabulous. I'm so glad. We are so glad.
I'm smiling.
Jamie's smiling. It's so lovely that you're able to take the time out of your day. We've been in lockdown for a long time, and seriously, having you do this has given a lot of people joy. So thank you for that. Seriously, it's just been quite dismal for us. So thank you for taking the time out. Tom is providing VC and HSC subsidised lessons. So if you'd like a lesson off Tom, contact theskunk@gmail.com, and we will make sure that you can get some lessons. Don't forget, Tuesday night there is a performance session with Steve Rossay from the Sydney Symphony Orchestra, and Thursday there is a performance masterclass, and there's also a concert. And we will get as much info from Tom, all his books, whatever we can, and also everyone that's on this call, because there's about 90 people here. Please make sure you support our artists. So don't be going unscribed. Get on the websites, buy the stuff, buy the CDs, go to the we can't go to the concerts, but we can support because it matters.
And a big thank you to Besson.
And a big thank you to Besson for supporting Tom. So thanks everyone, and thank you, Tom.
I have one question. Who's the skunk?
So Skunkworks.
No, let's not go there, Tom.
Okay.
DM us.
No. Okay, just so you know, Skunkworks is from Lockheed Martin. Skunkworks is a small group of people getting together and getting stuff done, and that's Jamie, myself, and Colin, and we just get stuff done. So that is the whole thing. Can
you come into my garden?
Can we do your garden?
Yeah.
Oh my God. We just bought chickens and rabbits and got,
Okay,
we'll
off
come
topic
do
now.
Okay, we're off topic.
So much thanks for you, Tom, in the chat.
Many thanks. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for making it so enjoyable as well. I've done so many of these, which is just, you just get people on the other end going, but yeah, you've been great.
Oh, no,
so thank you.
It was never going to be like that. So next year you're on, and maybe you'll be here to do it.
Awesome.
Maybe.
Oh, that would be awesome. Come say that.
Many thanks, Tom.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone unmute and say thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Skunkworks, for getting this happening.
Our pleasure.
Yep.
Thanks for organising it.
Pleasure. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming. Hopefully see you tomorrow.
Great. We'll see you during the rest of the week.
Oh, thanks, Kim.
Bye.
See ya.
See you guys.
See you guys.
See ya. Bye.